You're alive now. Perfect.
No, you look great.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine just like that. Okay.
Does this outfit make my wings look big?
Live.
Let me turn on mirroring.
Takes two.
That way it
Your wings,
actually
your
mirrors
wings.
off on the stream.
Okay. Let me post the announcement.
Yep. Brox will post the announcement right
Is too
now.
exposed.
Also, you can stay right over here, and that way you can see the chat as well, Amish. And then I'll also be letting you know if like there's any questions through the chat, and then at the later after you're done like talking about a certain subject, then you say, is there any questions in the chat, and then I can like let you know what those questions are if you're not able to read it.
Sounds good.
Perfect. So I would say just, wait about like, because it takes about like 5 or 6 minutes before people actually start coming in here, and then you can start doing your presentation. Hey, Siberian Bane. Hey, Tier Hack. Welcome, you guys.
Do you need... I think you need to do something about your eye tracking too, Elodie.
Welcome, welcome.
Except that I can.
No, you can't because you've got all the worlds open.
It's okay, I won't be on the camera, so that's fine.
Oh no, you're gonna be on the camera too.
Question: How long do we have?
As long as you guys are willing to do it for. So
Okay.
As much stuff as you would like to show out, as much stuff as you'd like to talk about, yeah.
Okay.
So as much time,
Thank
yep, as much time as possible, and then we'll be hosting out everything for on through the stream. We're just waiting right now to get like
Okay.
more people inside of here.
Nice.
Oh, Siberian says because this is a talk with guests, I would say that you should deactivate stream commands if you guys haven't already. Well, we hope that people will be a little bit on a better behavior with the commands. Yeah, they will be off once Amish starts actually talking about specific things. But if you guys want to explode Amish right now, you can. At least if you're a subscriber.
Some of my ex-students, maybe.
That too.
Finally got their revenge.
See, already.
Yeah, there's
Perfect.
one. Oi, I'm all the way outside now.
Oh, thank you for the subscription, Blaze. Thank you, man.
It's about 10 megatons there, I think.
Actually, Probable
Bring it
Prime.
on.
Probable Prime says that's for science.
Whoa.
It's
Thank you, Brian.
experimentations.
Oh,
gosh.
yes. We're
Now I
planning to do
explode.
one of those in the chemistry lab later. Look at that.
Yep, that can actually be a pretty good example of like what you were saying. Like, are you going to showcase that out with the chemistry and how mixing one chemical with the other chemical could cause an explosion? Then you could actually see the reaction of
Can
that.
go very badly wrong.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then there's also a bee outbreak in here. Don't mind that.
run away! Run away!
Thank you, Samaro, for the follow. We'll be starting off the presentation about like 4 more minutes because we're starting to get people coming in.
And is that the number of people already at the top? Oh my lord.
Yep, already 26 people we got inside of here watching. Who knows, like, since that Frox has already posted it out, usually people start flooding in, usually I'd say in like 30 minutes in, and then it gets to like somewhere even in the realm of like 75 people watching. So.
Remember the good old days when Neos only had 3 people? Whoa!
Yes, I do remember those good old days.
Whoa! Whee!
Yeah, if we have those on, you'll definitely probably get motion sick if you were trying to do an announcement. So we'll be having those turned off.
You can't make us motion sick. Bring it on!
Siberian says this is why this is such a
Famous
great
last
program.
words.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, I made that rather
Hamish is so
plain
used to
on a
it.
centrifuge
Hamish
in
is
Europe
actually.
once. You can't make me motions.
Yeah,
That was a mistake.
Hamish has been inside of here since me and Outsider were in here during the very early days of Neos, and they've been
The
utilizing
centrifuge
Neos
was
since day
pretty
one.
nasty. It was called the Kugel, and it. No, we'll see. That's what I thought too, and it made me very, very green.
I mean, I used to get green, but I don't anymore. It's
Right.
yeah.
That's exactly what I said when this guy went for the special button that does a really, really nasty stimulus called precession.
What?
Position is where you do this kind of whoa, and that cleaned me up in about 2 minutes.
What are we having?
Evacuate,
Thank you,
evacuate,
Liam,
make your way
for or
directly
Lai
to the
Ama
safest.
for the follow. Thank you very much. Oh, the stream loves you. They already love you.
That's funny. That's funny shit right there.
Pizza! Thank you!
So we'll be starting in about 2 more minutes. Let a few more people join in, so then Amish can start off his presentation.
Do you want your
I
pie?
had pizza in my face.
My pizza.
Whoa!
Yeah, can you feed me that, Hustler? Thanks. Thanks, man. Delicious.
Okay.
It just says I just pulled a told nail fragment out of my teeth. Ah,
No thanks.
that's no good. Gearbell always makes such amazing creations everywhere they go. Oh yeah, Gearbell makes really good stuff.
Yep.
Oh,
Really? Ooh,
Whoa!
got a gravity flip.
Again!
they have to enjoy the commands while they can.
Yep.
Because we
They-
made a safe
they-
version of the chat, like for the.
Yeah, we're gonna have a safe version that won't have gravity flip or won't have any. Well, we might even just like take it out of the room itself, like for everything, while he's doing his presentation, while we go to different
It leaves
worlds.
feathers behind.
Hey,
Yep, we just started, Raccoon.
That
We
is
literally just
cool.
started, and in about a minute we're going to have it set up. So, Frox, would you be able to actually get rid of command stuff and all that other thing right now?
yes, I can remove them.
Yeah, remove it right now, and then also, but before you do that, we need another gravity flip, so we're not having
gravity.
we're not having presentation. Can somebody flip?
pizza.
Can somebody flip gravity for us?
Yeah, can I put gravity and reset the skybox? Set it like to sky evening and. Oop.
Yeah, could chat set the skybox to sky evening? Thank you very much. You okay? So
And maybe change the lines as well. Make them white.
okay.
What is the hex code for that?
Thank you, guys.
FFF.
See, our chat knows when to behave. They're good.
Okay, now bring the
Otherwise, there
save
will be
version of the chat.
spikes on the bottom.
Yep. Perfect. This one doesn't have gravity flip either, right?
No, the gravity. It's actually pretty bright. Actually, can you try like 888?
Okay, hold on. Have we lost you, Elodie?
Okay, and for the garage, I need to remove this in the room itself.
Yeah.
Color.
You guys got that chance to get out of your system right from the beginning.
There we go. That's good lighting. Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect.
And where do we have it? Room control. So removing gravity, removing lights.
Getting some fresh air before the stream.
A quick cigarette, I thought.
No cigarettes for you, especially near the chemicals.
And it's also on the skybox.
No
Change
smoking
it.
at home, boys and girls.
Yep.
There we go.
It's a very
Okay.
bad idea.
Should be safe now.
Or blowing up. Yeah, you don't want to blow up.
Or blowing up, exactly.
I think we're about ready to start. I think.
Okay, awesome. So, Amish, you can have leeway now. I have your voice on broadcast, so you can,
Nice.
and also the camera will be directly on you, so the whole stream can see
Okay.
and hear
Let me have
everything that
like
you
a,
want to.
just give him like a quick introduction, essentially like.
Yeah, so why don't you give him an introduction, Frox?
Oh yes. So essentially, Hamish here and Elodie. I think she went away. They're essentially from the Sydney Human Research Factors and have been using NEOS like for making really amazing like educational and research applications. Essentially, we invited them over here. This is sort of like a showcase what they've been doing over the past year, like and how they've been using virtual reality to essentially improve a lot of the areas. So. You can pretty much start tell us a little bit about yourself, about the department, about the university, and show what you have been doing.
Sure. Thanks very much for inviting me. This is obviously a great pleasure to be presenting in NEOS, because we believe that NEOS is the killer app for research and education. And from various emails and contacts I've had of late, we're not the only one. There are now unis coming out of the woodwork getting very excited about using the NEOS metaverse engine for research and education, because it's just such a no-brainer. Basically, it allows us to rapidly create content and collaborate around the world and do experiments and teach and learn without all of the misery that used to be involved in setting up even a basic application in Unity. We got really lucky with NEOS about a year and a half ago. We lost our Unity developer. We had a full-time Unity guy, and then he went off to work for industry, double the money we could afford to pay at the university. And we thought, well, that's it. We're completely screwed. What are we going to do now? And it's at that time I was searching around on the internet trying to find any application that would allow us to bring in some kind of model, like a medical scan or something, and have more than one person look at it at the same time. That's all I wanted. That was my ambition. So I searched around. I thought I could do it with a program called Masterpiece VR, where supposedly two people can sculpt together in the same room. I thought I could bring my medical scan in as like a template, and the two, a surgeon and a scientist, could stand and discuss this model without actually doing much sculpting. And that never worked. The registration was very bad. So I was searching and I was searching online, and I found this, the metaverse engine. Now, even at that time, I have to admit, it was a little bit unstable. This is before it was even on Steam, and there were no instructions and there were no manuals and there was no one to show you how to do it. It was just these cryptic controls, and it would crash, at least for me, about every 3 minutes. But the potential was so obviously there, you know, shining through that inconvenience of the thing going down every 3 minutes and not having a clue what any of the controls meant, and trying to work things out from first principles. Through all of that, it was just ridiculously obvious that this was the application we were looking for anyway, because it solves all of those problems for research and education without having to program. So you can start to focus on what you're trying to do and not how to do it. And so today we'll show you a few rather amateur applications built by us. Please be kind. Remember, we're not computer programmers. We're just in the School of Psychology. But I hope you will agree that the metaverse engine provides significant power to any normal user. If we can do it, anybody can do it. And now this is what all the other unis are getting really excited. Oh my Lord, they're thinking we can do anything. And they're right. With Froxius's engine, they can do anything. So today, if you'll humour us, we thought we might take you first to our lab, talk a little bit about why we're excited about virtuality, and then go up into the sky and talk about medical applications, and go down into the subway about collaborative stuff with other universities. And Elodie's, if we have time, is going to talk about the applications in balance function for testing and rehabilitation. And then if we still have time and you haven't all gone and slit your wrists, then we would go to we set up some islands with all of the schools who are part of the Faculty of Science, and we thought we'd do a little bit of a tour through physics and maths and chemistry. And by the end of that, I think we'll have covered some pretty serious territory by way of examples. So would we like to go there now?
Awesome, yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
I'd like to see it.
So we're going to the lab. Hopefully it'll load on your computers.
Okay, let's see. So I think Max should go first.
Yeah, I'll go inside of there. That way we can see how
So
we're going to the lab stack simple. Hello, Ellie.
Hi.
Okay. Let me set a group.
Hamish? Have you clicked
Yep.
on the pink button?
Yep, I think he's joining us.
I'm loaded.
It's coming, it's coming.
Ooh. Nice, 360.
I remember this one from the video.
Here, let me actually show you guys on the
Shouldn't
stream.
have a fan in my room.
Nice.
Let's see.
Elo says, my friends thought I'd pop in for a sec playing Overwatch. Love the advancements in VR for school and education. It makes sense to me that you get to experience things in your own perspective. Plus, excuse me,
Okay, I
Grandpa.
made it.
Oh yeah, you're really awesome to have you here, man.
Sorry about that. Apparently, one of the machines in the lab is not a friend of the other machines yet, so we have a little bit of a challenge.
So this
to
is
keep
their
them all
laboratory. If you guys can see that inside the stream, I'll actually make this sphere just a little bit, or like go inside of it a little bit more. So this is like a 360 image. So you guys can get a whole view of it.
Standing in right now,
Yep, and they have a whole bunch of VR headsets right over there. Even like the
museum.
original dev kits for the Oculus. Yep, the museum. And then you got like computers over here. Do you guys have a HoloLens inside there?
Not a HoloLens. We stopped buying AR headsets at the Meta Pro because we don't think they're ready, basically. Obviously, I used a HoloLens,
I
but I'm
must
still
have confused it for
disappointed
something
with
else.
the field of view and the basically
Yeah,
it's not been solved yet, really, has it, frankly? Whereas virtual reality is clearly ready for prime time use right now. So, we're pretty excited about all the new headsets that have just come out in the last few months. The Oculus Quest is completely mind-bending, I think, within the limitations of fairly low graphics power, of course, but the portability and the cost is really one of the things that's suddenly getting the university interested. And that's because for the last year or so, we've been saying, you should do that in VR. You just need to buy this $5,000 computer and this $1,000 headset. And you can see their eyes rolling over when they think, 30 students times $6,000, that's a little bit painful. Whereas now we can say, just buy a $500 Oculus Quest times 30 students and wheel it around inside a case from tutorial to tutorial, and everybody would be happy. And so that's made people realize that it's actually logistically possible, or about to be logistically possible, when NEOS on Quest is a little bit more stable. So that's exciting times coming for everybody. So let me explain where we are. So this is a very low poly model of the lab in which we basically live, and the reason for that is that I've got the whole campus modelled out there. So I didn't want to slut your computers with every computer and every keyboard and every bit of rubbish that we have in the lab. Instead, it's a little bit minimal, but as I say, the reason for that is we're going to go up and see the entire campus in a moment. While we're in the lab and we were just talking about the museum, I thought it might be worth explaining the 60-second history of why we got so excited and why we built the lab. And that's because about 20 years ago, I first had my encounter with virtual reality. We were doing a project for NASA on the space shuttle in a tube in the back called NeuroLab, and our project was about spinning people on a centrifuge, but a different team had what was at the time the world's best and most expensive virtual reality headset, a thing called a Kaiser Optics something rather 64. It was about $60,000 this headset, and as a 20-year-old, I got so excited thinking it was going to be like the movies that I barged my way in and said, Lee, you got to let me try this headset. And I put this headset on, and it was absolutely awful, of course. Super low field of view, terrible resolution, 320 by 240 pixels, I think. No head tracking, so you got sick, and it just made me think, that's very disappointing. I'm going to have to wait until the technology is ready. And that's been a big wait, 20 years since then. But so worth it. Even at that point, 20 years ago, it was obviously eventually going to take over education and research, and I believe that takeover has started as a result of the metaverse engine making it super easy, even for people like us. So that's kind of why we're here. 5 years ago, we built this lab and we started trying to convince people, you should do VR, you should do VR. We tried to make demos to send to every school and every faculty. We made a physics demo and we sent it to physics, and we made a surgery demo and we sent it to the Institute of Academic Surgery, and we sent a demo basically to every single school and faculty we could think of, going, look what this looks like, look how amazing this is at the moment. And a lot of those people sort of found that a bit overwhelming, frankly, and not much happened, and we thought, this is not going to work. But the two things that make me now realise it is going to work is that children and young kids, or university-age kids, are not like that. They basically get it straight away, super excited. Do we really need virtual reality? They're just assuming that that's the way it's going to be done. And The other reason why I'm getting excited now is because all of the people, all of the schools and all of the faculties that we sent demos to 6 months ago are now suddenly coming back and saying, oh, we remember that demo you sent, that was really cool, but what we really need is this other learning objective implemented. You showed us a particle accelerator, but what we really want to do is something to do with atoms and, assembling molecules or something. And then now, with them coming to us, we can start to help them implement their fantasies and show them that anything is possible. So it's an exciting time here at the Sydney Uni, for us at least. And we're not the only ones, as I said earlier. People are now coming out of the woodwork from unis all over the world. When we go down in the subway later, I'll show you the collaborators around the globe that are starting to say, let's build a NEOS network of education and research assets. And, I think that's going to be a huge, huge application for NEOS beyond the social and the adventure and the bang, bang, bang. All right. So here's my slide presentation. I made this joke in a previous presentation where I was saying, right, everybody calm down, quiet down, and pay attention to the slides. Make sure your cell phones are turned off. But obviously, that's not a presentation anymore. Ever since NEOS, we're not going to use PowerPoint again. It's been in continuous use for 27.5 years. It's about time we got a bit more exciting than that. Instead, we're going to start to roam around and go on an adventure. So the first part of this adventure is going up to the sky and seeing the rest of the campus. And for that, we all need to crowd into the centre onto this round disc, because this is our transport. And then Elodie's going to open the roof. Everybody look up and see my...
wow.
See
yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's cool.
So that's like an aperture that opens the same way as a camera iris. I was very pleased with that. And then, because it's safety week, we're now raising the bar around the outside. And then Elodie will take us to the sky.
Ah!
And we're away. Woo!
Nice.
All right, we're up on the elevator. That was a
Wow, that's beautiful. That is so cool.
So yeah, when we did this tour for the vice chancellor of the uni, basically the boss of the uni, we tried to discourage him from leaving this platform because he wasn't good with heights and he might have a bit of a reaction. But you guys can all fly, so you're not afraid, I'm sure. But you can all have a look. This is the Sydney University campus. So it's, maybe not by American standards, but at least by Australian standards, this is as big as universities get. It's about 25 or 30,000 students, and it's all of the buildings that you can see, which is pretty crazy, of course, building after building after building. Some of which are nice old-fashioned ones made out of sandstone, trying to look like an old English school, and some of which are sort of high-tech research institutes. And the idea is that we basically have started to collaborate with a number of the schools and faculties around the map. And so you can see a bunch of sort of cones floating in the air. There's a red cone over there, and a cyan cone, and a blue cone, and a magenta cone. These are places at the uni where we are currently collaborating. So we have projects going on with people in anatomy and in the institute and at the Brain and Mind Centre and at chemistry and at veterinary science. And basically these markers are going to start to populate, I'm hoping, or reproduce until the entire campus is just covered in these giant cones, because we've managed to get NEOS into every single building, like tentacles into an orifice, if you'll excuse me.
People in chat are also saying that they thought that this was a city. This is just the university.
That's
right?
This is just the university.
This is just the university, you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a model of all of Sydney, but this is just Sydney Uni. And the buildings around the very perimeter are probably people's houses and things, just to provide context. But basically everything in this giant block with the ovals and things, that's all the University of Sydney. So it's it's a middle-ish sized one, even by world standards, I would say. So the idea from here was to have a little look at some of the medical applications, because most of these cones are pointing at schools and faculties that are interested in medical applications. So Elodie's going to open us a world that speaks to something medical.
Oh, awesome.
The anatomy one?
Anatomy, I guess.
Here. Yep. Okay, it's here.
That one's the anatomy? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
We'll go inside there. Well, Hamish, go in there first.
I have to go via my home, apparently.
Oh, I think I'm a spectator, so I don't think I'm able to click on it.
We're all spectators.
I think you'd have to open it up for us as a non-spectator so we can actually click on the bubble.
Let's connect. We can actually connect to a friend list,
Okay.
I think. Okay. No. Oh, there we go. We can open now.
Siberian says, it must suck waking up late for class and you have to walk 2 hours just to get to class. I'm sure they have transportation there, or like some things to get around.
Buses, Uber.
You want
Yeah.
to try this one?
Yeah. Or well, we're set as a spectator, so we can't click. So we can't click the bubble. You'd probably
We don't have the
Ah,
role
sorry,
Yes.
sorry.
So that would be
Yeah.
under this session.
Okay. Okay. And you need what?
So
Admin permission?
yeah, admin is fine because
No,
we're
just
just going to.
guest.
Yeah, we're guest. Just so then we can get to another world.
Sorry. Yep.
There we go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
LOL Canadian says, curious if Google Earth for some reason didn't work for you. I could see performance, for example. Yeah, I mean, Google Earth would be something amazing instead of Neos. Maybe one day.
Everybody else is here, so I don't know why.
Let me set it back on to Amish.
I love this example.
Yeah, this one is an amazing example.
I can update this with physical locomotion.
Okay. You're here now.
Oh, I don't
Yep,
have permission.
Amish is
to-
loading inside the world right now.
I just
Ah, finally. Okay, I got an invitation to my own world. So we won't linger here very long. We've sort of shown this avatar to death. I feel like it is here somewhere, isn't it, Elodie?
It's
Oh
here.
yes, it's here. So this is the avatar that Outsider made. How cool is he? Hello. At the moment, I guess it doesn't look all that exciting. It's just a girl in a spandex suit with the Neos logos displayed proudly across her chest.
Yep.
But the point of this one is that I can take different layers of their body off. So now I'm a skeleton, the same way I'm sure you've all seen many skeletons in Neos already. But I have all the other layers as well, so I can change to muscle. So this is the young lady's musculature. And I find this completely mind-bending because if I look at my own hands and I bend my fingers, now I can see the actual muscles operating because Outsider beautifully weight-painted this avatar. Mind-bogglingly amazing to wear.
Much better
And
than
then
flipping
I
through
have
the
on top of
textbook
that, I've
pages
got
inside of a
blood.
book and actually feel like you can
Precisely.
see the anatomy.
In fact, I'm not sure that it really works from this perspective. If I get out of my avatar, you guys should try it instead of listening to it, because it's completely amazing wearing that, in my opinion. See, now look at your own hands. It's just crazy.
Here, let me put on frogs.
That's so weird.
Yep, and they can change it around. And the buttons that they're pressing on the side of their arm is allowing them to change between the different anatomy parts.
Spooky.
Where that's lymph, and I find lymph was a surprise to
the
me.
nervous
Lymph
system
looked so amazing.
right there.
Considering it's not very exciting.
That's basically all of Frox. That's all Frox needs.
What? Nervous system.
So yeah, we thought this would be great for anatomy students because they can wear their own anatomy and see how it all works, see how the muscles pull on various bones, and see how the nerves are connected to each other, see how the blood, arterial and venous circulatory system is working. And on your body, it's just 10 times more compelling than in a book, as Nextaland was saying, where, that just doesn't cut it. Flat black and white pictures in a book anymore, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
And
somebody
this is
actually
the
has a
stuff you
question
can
for
do.
you, Amish. They're asking, how many classes would use VR?
Here at the uni, so at the
Yeah.
moment we've actually rolled out to students. We've done veterinary students and we've done a group of ISS students. And there is some logistical challenge to scaling up this kind of experience to a whole class. The largest group of students from vet were 140 students, and in order to do that they had to come in groups of 16, 3 groups a day for a couple of days so that we had enough headsets to put half of them in virtual reality with a buddy out of virtual reality and then swap them over. At that time, we had the facility to do 8 people at a time. Now with the Quest, we can do more. And that's basically what's going to break the back of it. That's the reason why now classes can take it on and say, oh, look, we should do that class in VR and we should do that class in VR. It's because it's now logistically possible. So until now, it wasn't very easy, but...
Yep, before you know it, the next 5 years
start,
are going to get better and better for VR and education.
I know.
I really do feel
people
that.
keep saying that. The next 5 years, I think it's now. It's
Yeah,
now.
it is. Yeah, it's now as well. Education for VR can happen absolutely now for it as well.
It's definitely not one of those always 5-year things in the future. It's just arrived like a train as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get out of here and see something else medical. Maybe if we all jump back to the top of the
It's
stack.
here. It's here.
I can just go straight there. Ah, this is the next medical one, is it?
Yep.
All right, this is a heavy one, so this is a little bit experimental. It could take you guys a while to load this because it's full of assets, where that one, the anatobar, is one asset. This has got 30 assets in it, so let's see what happens.
For sure. Let's check that out.
I get this session is...
I think I made private.
Yeah, I think she's
I think so.
not quite opened this one appropriately either.
There it is.
Oh, now it's loading for me.
All right, establishing connection. Good. We go.
Okay.
Yeah, I was meaning that when I was saying 5 years, Turhak, I was meaning that the low cost of the headsets in 5 years, like, because you imagine, like, an Oculus Quest will probably be, like, maybe even $150, $200 in 5 years, in my
The
opinion.
same price as a cell phone, basically.
Yeah, like, or even less, because
Yeah.
some cell phones are even more expensive than that nowadays.
You know, the Quest is not...
I remember this one, I think. This is when we all got duplicated.
Yep.
Yes. Does it load for you guys though?
Yep, it's loading out for
Oh,
us.
it's loading.
Slowly.
Most
Okay,
important
that's
one
good-
that
good
loads out
news.
for
As I say, this one's
is for
pretty-
me, because then the stream can see it.
Sure. You know, being a bit of a beginner with all of this world-building stuff, I made some big mistakes in the first few months where I didn't really understand what was heavy and what was not. My famous example is when I built a copy of the CERN, a particle accelerator at CERN, and then I kept bugging Froxius, doesn't this thing save? What's wrong with NEOS? This world just refuses to save. And he had a look at the file and he said, you've got more than 10,000 individual objects in that world. Is that a problem? I was asking. Is there some problem? So he had to teach me, it might be a good idea if you go and combine all those meshes into one and give your graphics card any chance of being able to render that in less than 1 frame per second or whatever it was running at the time. So now I know a little bit more about it, but this particular ENT museum's still a little bit old, so it's not been highly optimized, but it is cool, full of really cool anatomy assets that speak to ENT, which is ear, nose and throat. So the people that do vestibular stuff and sinus stuff and throat stuff, this is full of the stuff that they find interesting. So there's tumours and there's cochlear implants and there's models of the musculature, and there's some models over here that I lifted off Froxius's anatomy world. Whoops.
Look at this one.
And there's yes, this one's a beautiful
Isn't this
example
one-
because
Is
this
like
this
one of
model has
these-
been around for about 30 years, and it was always only viewable on a flat computer screen, and it was a nice model, but it suddenly came to life as soon as we could put it into VR and make it huge and walk around inside it. It suddenly made a lot more sense to everyone, even though we'd been looking at it, staring at it on a computer screen for decades, basically. Even my professor, who's now 70, how old's Ian now?
25, 76.
76. He'd been staring at this particular model because it's his research area for a long, long time. But as soon as we put it in the room as big as this, he walked around for about an hour with his goggles and just kept saying things like, I never understood that was connected to that. And look at the geometry of the way the eardrum is pointing directly at the saccule. And, he was getting a whole new understanding of his own research area at the age of 76 on the strength of a model that, took 10 seconds to import in NEOS. Absolutely, You know, a 10-year-old could have imported that model and impressed a 76-year-old professor. And that's what never gets old about NEOS, is you can impress the hell out of anybody except maybe wizards like the ones we're dealing with today.
I'm impressed.
All right, so if you've had enough of this room, maybe we'll go and have a look at one more medical one before we go down and talk about Elodie's balance testing and rehabilitation efforts.
Oh, absolutely.
APLS. All right, so this one's again is a little bit heavy, but let's give it a try.
I'll meet you inside there. I'm just going to set my view on here so you guys can see each of the individual things real quick before I head off inside there. Like the innards of the ear. I'm just going to be very quick about showing off each of the things inside of here.
The cochlear implant.
Yeah, I'm going to show that.
It's great, isn't it?
They even have some equipment here.
Yes, this is a robot, surgical robot, a
3D
working
printer.
microscope, 3D printing, because of course it's all about bioprinting at the moment. There's a 3D printed jawbone at the back of the room that was designed to help a woman who had needed her jaw reconstructed.
Yep, that's the cochlear implant.
So is the
And
ear, and you can sort of see it
the
inside.
wire actually goes into the ear right there, and wires into there, which is so awesome.
I think this is actually like a scan, like reconstructed from like a CT or something like that.
Yeah.
And we'll
And
show
all
the
of
rest
these
of
assets are obviously just scrounged offline. It's the other amazing thing I find about the virtual reality is so many assets out there you can... Oh, did Kai make that?
Yeah, I made it.
Ah, okay. Okay, so it was made by a colleague of ours, but now it's...
Wait,
free
you
for
made
other
this,
people to
Elodie?
benefit from, I guess. So
Not me, but yeah, at the uni someone.
our colleague
nice.
at the Institute of Academic Surgery made it.
Nice.
And quite a lot of the ones in here. In fact, he made that one of the tumour in the sinuses, and he helped reconstruct the jaw of this Chinese lady that desperately needed a new jaw.
See the teeth? Isn't that so awesome, you guys? I love that.
Oh, yeah, I remember you showing me this one.
And it's crazy, isn't it? She obviously was in a bit of a state.
Even
This
this
is the
eye
scan
has
before
all of
where
the
she just had a
different.
Let's show
jaw.
that one that
Yeah.
they're
Also the
showing.
eyes.
And when
with
she was
the
finished, she
labels.
had a working
Next.
jaw. So that's life-changing for this lady.
Yeah. So why don't you explain that one real quick, Hamish? Let me put the camera back on you so you can explain.
So
'cause
you can see this is a scan of the lady before they started to try and help her. You see she has no bone at all in her lower jaw, just a titanium plate left over from a previous attempt. And so what they wanted to do was make her a new jaw by cutting up her tibia. So over here there's a model of her tibia from a scan, and then these 3D printed plastic guides were placed on the tibia so that they could cut it perfectly at the right angles and in the right places, such that they could then form her tibia up into the shape of a jaw and give it back to her, basically, since she needs a jaw much more than she needs a tibia. So, but on the end of that, she kind of looked completely fixed.
Awesome. Already
So,
the
yeah.
potential of the 3D printing
think
and what that can do to help people's
Yeah,
lives.
you know, the convergence of these technologies, virtual reality plus AI plus 3D printing plus robotics, you know, we're all up for a roller coaster ride pretty much, aren't we, in the next few years?
Absolutely.
All right,
saw
so we're
3D
going to
printing in here,
advanced
too.
pediatric life support.
Awesome. Okay. Heading inside there right now. Let me let it load through.
Nope.
It just takes a second probably.
Nope, it's
Yeah.
on.
Welcome,
There we
Black.
go, it's loading.
And yeah, it is a very cool roller coaster. And yes, fascinating as well, Dr. Ken. I love this
I
sort of
think
stuff.
I'm loading,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep, loading inside there.
It's another heavy one. Warning to all, it's
That's okay.
There we go.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, Elodie.
Hey.
You probably want to
Yes,
also, you probably also would want to close off the other worlds like as we go into each
Yep.
one. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that's what I'm doing in
Okay,
the same time. Yep.
okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And let me put the.
Right, so you might think this is getting a bit samey, another medical world. Part of the reason why a lot of the worlds that we've made so far, about 50 or 60 have a medical bent, is that medical people are really urgent about using virtual reality now. And, you know, my explanation for that is that they're, They have the motivation of life and death. If they think that there's something out there that can help their patients, that might save 3 of them by the end of the week. So they kind of super keen to do it. Let's see if that helps. As opposed to, other industries and other research areas where they're kind of comfortable with the methods they're using now. Medical people are never comfortable with the methods they're using now. They're always looking for something better. So this isn't so much about education, this particular world. This is about training. So this is an environment in which people who already know a fair bit about medicine can come and try and practice their skills or learn new skills in the environment in which they will ultimately matter. So the model we're standing in is an architectural model from the Westmead Hospital. So Westmead is a suburb outside Sydney where they've just built this gigantic new building, 14 stories tall, and about $500 million, I think, has been spent on it. It's not yet finished, however. It's still half constructed and there's cranes all over it and a big ditch in the ground, half full of water. And there's basically no opportunity to learn to use this facility until years from now when they finally finish putting in all the equipment and painting all the walls and doing all of that. But with virtuality, we can start to do training inside this building now, way before it's even finished. So this is the actual intensive care unit. So patients come in off the trucks outside here and straight into this first room to be triaged, which means for someone to decide, do they need to go into the scanner or do they need to instant resuscitation, or can they go off to the wards because it's nothing particularly urgent. And there's an ambulance out here this was one of our first attempts at using logics because this truck is kind of animated. If I can remember how to work it, I can slide all the doors closed with this slider, so the back door's closed. And then, I can't remember what this button does.
Would you be able to show that again for the doors opening? Oh,
all right,
there
so
it goes.
That's the animation of the ambulance backing into the facility. So if I touch that again, you'll see it slowly comes rolling.
Yeah, let's see that.
Bear with me, it must be the other button. Right, this
there
one.
you
So
go.
it's backing in, beep, 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 beep. Get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way. There's an urgent resuscitation required here. So now I'll open the doors. And so this is how the baby that's now inside in intensive care arrived inside this truck. And these were my first few days of learning logics. It's a little bit laughable now, but on the day I was so pleased that I managed to get this thing to back in and the doors to open. I thought I was a rock star, but it's a little bit sad. In the company of the current rock stars. All right, so if we go back into the intensive care unit, you'll see this is the baby that just arrived on the truck. And the objective here was that we wanted to do what's called advanced pediatric life support. So if this baby is basically not breathing, you've got some minutes, very few minutes, to do something about it. Otherwise, you're going to have a dead child on your hands, and no one likes dead children, of course. So the idea was that the 4 nurses, of which Elodie is currently inside one of them, could try and save this baby's life. And that was a rapid sequence of events that needed to be coordinated between people. And the first thing we had to do was take off the boots and the shirt so that we could get at the skin to put pads on to measure its vital signs and, if necessary, shock it with a DC defibrillator. And then these other cues were supposed to help learn where all of this needs to happen and in what order. So ideally you would get the pads onto the baby's chest, and because babies are so small, or this child is so small, they don't go in the normal locations. They have to go in this strange location, one on the front and one on the side. So the nurses had to quickly get these pads into place, so there's one. I have to grab the other one, and as I say, this is sort of an issue of how quickly you can do something to help this child. And the idea was that it would show us if it was successfully placed, then the pads would turn green to say correct. And the next thing that we had to do was to get some compression happening on its chest. So you can see there's a hand here animated showing you where you should push on a child's chest, which is kind of specific. You don't want to break its sternum. And it's not like a human where you put both hands on top of each other and bear down with all of your weight. You just need a gentle compression. So that's supposed to show where to compress and at what speed, about 120 beats a minute. Plus, if you were successful, it would turn green. And then we had to get a catheter into its arm. So this is showing the target destination for the catheter, where the catheter is over here somewhere. I think it's that one. Oh, yes, that would do. Thank you very much. Being passed that by somebody helpful. So this was about getting the needle into its arm, because it may or may not need a shot of adrenaline to try and get its heart going again. And so if you get the catheter in the right place, it turns green. And then finally we had to get a breathing tube into its throat. So here's the breathing tube location, and that also turns green if you succeed. Where this is the breathing tube, which I had to draw myself. So this is another example of how many assets there are out in the world online for free. Everything in the building was scrounged off except for this one item. I had to draw one object of the entire hospital. So that obviously goes down inside the child's throat so that you can get the resuscitator on. And this actually worked back on the day. I don't know if it still works. Oh, that one still works. Yeah, this is another interesting learning experience for me, is how long it can take to rig things. So I wasn't very skillful, as I say, on logics at the time. It took longer for me to make this syringe than it took me to make the entire rest of the hospital. Basically, was a surprise to me anyway. Maybe you computer modelers are used to all of this, but bringing in a simple static asset, no matter how complex and how large, basically takes 1 second in NEOS. But to start to rig things such that they work can be quite time consuming. And this syringe basically opens and closes when I use my trigger. And it took me longer to make that than the rest of the whole facility. So I found that interesting, that it's hard to estimate sometimes. Anyway, so if you do all of the right things at the right time, as per the instructions that are being queued up with these indicators, then you end up with a saved baby. And we thought that was a worthwhile thing to practice for nurses and medical professionals, not so much us who don't really know how to do an advanced pediatric life support, but we can provide the environment in which those that do know can teach those that should know, and at the end of the day there'll be a lot more living children. So that's an example of medical training. What's next, Elodie? Should we go back to the top of the
Yep, if you
stack?
want to. It's here.
A lab stack symbol.
All right,
Okay,
excellent.
so we're
Oh yeah.
Right, so we're all getting pretty sick of the sound of my voice now, and that's why I would recommend the next thing we do is go back down to the lab and ask Elodie to tell us a little bit about how she tests patients and cures patients using NEOS. We've done education, medical education, we've done medical training. She's going to show you medical diagnosis and treatment. So first of all, we'll go driving back down to the lab. Oh, we didn't go. Hang on, I'll drive us down to the lab. All right, we're going down, we're going down, we're going down. Woohoo! Going down.
Whoop.
Hopefully I remembered to open the aperture. Yes, good.
Yeah, I'm crashing through the floor.
Parenting platform so that we don't all go flying.
Yes.
Well, even then, it kind of doesn't. Oh, wait, never mind. I remember making it.
All right, so that's the rail down. Close the... You see a human elbow?
360 image. Sad, isn't it? All right, good. We're back in the lab, and Elodie's going to take over and tell you a little bit about treatment and testing.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to start. Well, I work with patients with inner ear issues. So we show you just previously in the anatomy museum the model of the inner ear, and when there is like a virus or anything in the ear, then the patient has what we call vertigo. And vertigo, it's kind of hard to explain. So I'm going to show you, because in VR we can do that. If you want to open.
There you go.
I'm going
Yeah,
to
that's good.
experience vertigo in the. Oh no, no laser. Oh no. I can't get.
Okay, let's experience this vertigo, you guys.
Okay.
Oh, I see. You got it like rotating.
So with induced vertigo.
That's what
already
patient
busy.
with
Maybe
vertigo
you might have a
can
laser.
see and feel.
Oh, look, my body's spinning too.
When I was making it, but it doesn't do anything now.
Oh, great. That's good. So what's
Just was
happened? It's because when you have a dysfunction on one ear, your eyes start moving with a slow fade and a quick fade on the other direction, and that's why then you see the world spinning like this because your eyes are beating one way and the other. So if you stay in this world long enough, you will start feeling what we call vertigo. Exactly like this. Can
In
everybody
theory,
see that?
because I'm wearing an eye tracking headset, you should be able to see my eyes actually moving when I look at this background.
Why don't we actually we can zoom in the camera so then we
If
can
you
see that.
zoom in and I watch the, do you see my eyes doing
Yep.
what's called
No.
nystagmus?
I can see it a little bit, but like it's
Oh
subtle.
yes, yep. Yeah,
Love it.
well, it's usually not. It's like this. It's not bigger than that.
Yeah, so this is the symptom that she's trying to recognize when she first sees a patient. Their eyes are doing this, and they're complaining, "Oh, the world is rotating, the world is rotating," and I'm feeling
Oh,
very
yes,
sick.
it's like this. Anyway, let's get out of here.
This one,
It's kind of.
Ah,
Try
yes,
this
that's
out,
great.
Don't exaggerate it a little bit.
All
Oh,
right, so
yeah.
now you can see my lines of sight,
This is
and
happening
if
to
I'm
Elodie's
following
eyes.
the world, do you see my eyes moving?
Yeah, here, let me put the camera
Yep.
back on you.
Nice one. Okay.
So that's nystagmus. That's the medical symptom she's interested in.
So I close this world now. We will be back to the lab.
Yep, Vive Pro eye tracking.
Okay. Everybody's here? Good.
Yep.
So then that's the symptoms, and what we can do then is test the function of the inner ear and test the perception of the patient. So for that, if you want to open this world,
Oh no.
It's gonna take a little bit. Yeah, I think she wants to make it public.
I'll need an invite.
okay, so what's happening in this world when the patient has this vertigo problem and can see the world spinning, it also have a perception of what we call the subjective vertical tilt. So to test that, I need this.
I'll do it if you give me permission. Or do you
Oh,
want to move it? You just want to make it dark, I think, don't you?
Yes. So if I move the sun, can we see something in the?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh,
So now it's all dark, so you don't have any perception of the vertical. And then what the test for the patient is to align this picture. So if I equip the tool here, then with my controller I can move the painting and try to have it straight and level. So if I'm,
Yep.
is everybody happy with that?
Oh yeah.
And I've got more painting. So the painting starts tilt, and then I try to have it straight. And for patients with inner ear at the acute stage issue, then they will see the world tilting like that. Like on every painting, they will constantly have the painting tilt. So that's how we can know that there is a problem with the inner ear, as well as measuring eyes movement.
That's a really smart way of going about it.
Yeah, we find this test is much more interesting for people when they have some task like set paintings as if they were the curator in a museum and they're adjusting everything, rather than just what the traditional test just involves a row of LEDs and you ask them, get the LEDs as straight as you can, as straight as you can. People get pretty bored of that test pretty quickly. But people really like this test, and they're often asking us, I know this artist. And they get motivated, basically.
that's
So
awesome.
when we, is everybody here? Yeah. Once we have done the test for the patient, so we have the symptoms, we have the testing, then we can try to do some. Oh no, we've got the balance testing first. So if I close this one back,
Mm-hmm.
Back inside here.
Put this
where it
back.
is here. Yeah.
Another one to open. Tuscany.
Set it a minute. It's open.
Mm-hmm.
Can everybody join?
Yes,
Yes.
we're loading.
It's
Okay.
loading.
Yep. Okay.
Nice view.
So that's a nice garden, and we use also VR for patients. So usually that's to test the balance and the posture of the patient. So usually the
let me fix the
patient
camera
stand
for you
on the
guys.
keyboard, so we can measure the sway and how much the patient move. And without VR, we only do eyes open, eyes closed, but it's too easy for patient, and then with patient with vertigo. So we put the VR headset on the patient and start wobbling the world. So if I do this
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
and this, oh, it's a bit wrong.
It's like a
Yeah, it's like an
Now
earthquake,
wait. Okay.
a really
and so
strong
if you
one.
stand, you have to keep standing and maintain your balance as much as you can, even if the world is moving and wobbling around. And then we can decrease or increase the speed of the world and see what level, which amplitude the patient will fall. So we can induce fall on patient, well, even on healthy subject, if we increase the speed of the world.
Good thing I'm not standing up right now, otherwise I would have already fell.
Exactly. That's what we do.
It's so funny to see even normals doing this test because, you know, they're absolutely determined that they're not going to be the one person that falls. So you put the VR headset on them and they say, oh, this is only pixels. I'm not going to believe it. I'm going to stay standing stably. And then she switches on the stimulus and boom, down they go like a sack of potatoes 100% of the time. And it shows you the power of virtual reality because you cannot suppress these responses. A bunch of pixels moving around in front of your face is enough to put your body over onto the ground, even though you know that you're just looking at pixels. So we think it's a powerful example of the way virtual reality can bypass some of your cognitive processes and talk directly to the ancient parts of your brain, the lizard parts of your brain, because you cannot switch that response off. If a world wobbles, you wobble, and there's nothing you can tell yourself to stop it.
So once we have the symptoms, done the testing, test the balance of the patient, we can do something for it and try to do what we call rehabilitation and training of the balance. So that's what we are doing in this world.
Okay, well, let's head inside there.
Okay, so in this world, we have what we call optokinetic stimulation, one with black and white stripe here and one with blue dot over here. So if we go inside the bubble, hello, and stand right in the middle, then we have this big blue sphere around us with moving dot. And because, same again, you don't have any perception of horizontal or vertical,
It's
then
a funny feeling, isn't it?
if you try
You'll
to
eventually get a
stand-
thing called vection where you think you're moving and not the drum. The drum ends up looking stationary.
and because we're using VR headsets, the head is tracking. So as well as standing inside the bubble, I can do a head movement exercise,
Yes. That's right. You would
Left
normally
and
never get a
right.
cue like
or
that.
up and down.
Next, do you put Elodie on broadcast?
Yeah, she's on broadcast.
Let's see. I dropped it hard to hear.
Again.
That's as high as I can get the volume. Sorry, you guys.
So do you want to talk?
Maybe. maybe you should just speak a bit louder using ye olde worldy technology. And everybody's madly adjusting their sliders and things trying to make you louder.
Okay, I can try. Yeah, sure. Okay, so that's one of the optokinetic simulation. And if you try the second one, so if you got the bubble and try the optokinetic drone, so same, you stand in the middle.
Oh no, this is what it's getting to me.
Yes. So, and this one moves so slowly, so then you don't see really the movement. If you feel like you are not moving, but because it's slowly, then your head and your eyes will slowly also increase, and usually end up with the head of the patient like this.
I can already feel it tilting.
And same, we ask the patient to stand up and keep the balance, keep straight, and do head exercises like this. And eyes, we can also put a target in VR, a fixed target, so that helps the patient to keep the head straight. But this stimulation is very powerful. And if you want something even more powerful, instead of looking straight, you can look up. And if you look up while you are right in the middle, you feel like it's a circular stimulation like this.
Oh yeah.
Yes?
Yep, I see it.
Mm,
That's crazy.
that really destabilizes people, something awful.
Yeah, for patients with the visual input, it's very hard to keep balance, and the feeling of motion is very hard.
It feels
So
like it's
that's how
moving, like in a
with
direction.
training of the patient by expose them to this kind of simulations, and we can train their balance and try to have them better, or at least better confident in their balance.
That's really
Do we
cool.
have anything? And oh yeah, the last one we can do. Let me take the
Let's head in there.
Okay, I would have been there for hours. Okay.
I think Aegis was getting sucked into it.
And I'm hypnotized.
Don't get hypnotized now. We need you.
Your eyelids are getting heavy.
okay. The last one we can do also for balance training.
Oh, the ski
and
resort.
It is a bit
Perfect.
more fun. It's a bit
This is my favorite one. I love the ski resort.
Yeah. And here?
Yep, it's just loading.
No. Okay. Where is everybody? I
I
cannot.
think some of them are up the top of the slide.
Oh, let me bring.
When we're loaded, there are some skiers at the top of the hill for you to slide in if you feel the inclination, but you have to fly all the way up top of the hill for that.
Oh, here, wait, let me send him to broadcast.
Where is the bring to me tool?
So if we make some copies of this guy,
Elodie, you have to give me this world orb. I want to make this one public because I really love this one. This would be perfect for Christmas
Oh
time.
yeah. It's.
she's gone already.
Okay, here, let's. I'm gonna go on one of these ski guys right now.
Yeah.
Here-
So
whoa,
the idea here
sorry,
is
sliding.
that in order to help vestibular patients, we want them to lean as much as possible, and yet it's not well implemented. The steering is not well implemented, so they're going to end up crashing
Yeah.
at the bottom there.
I'm already sliding. Here, wait. So I'm gonna go into one of these before sliding offwards. But let me put
That's
on my
right.
view.
If you jump into one of these and you change to physical,
Okay.
oh, lucky.
Okay.
He's
Okay,
going
wait.
backwards.
Okay. Let me fly at least a
Alright,
little
I'm
bit
gonna
over
jump
here,
in one too.
and then and then I'm gonna go to. Perfect.
Wow! Surprise, surprise! None of us know how to ski.
Woo! Yep, I'm already gonna crash. Yeah, I would suck at skiing.
Well, I guess you can see why this would be a good exercise for people who have balance function problems, because it forces them to lean. So we want them to lean to the limits of their stability. Lean left, lean right, lean forward, lean back. There's nowhere better than for leaning than in the French ski resort.
So awesome.
I'm going to go for a quick run.
I'm just walking with my skis, don't mind me.
Yeah.
I'm cheating.
Whoa,
Wait, I'm going to fly so that I can go back up the top. There's also these pretty cool, you know, ski seat slopes, so you could like sit down right inside here and go up for the ski thing, get lifted up. Okay, let me go back up top because the I really like skiing down this thing. Also change the camera view.
Actually, pretty high one, like by itself.
Hey, how's it going? Oh, I know.
Yeah. And you know, of course, that's the big challenge. The psychological challenge is trying to motivate vestibular patients to do their balance exercises, and they kind of don't want to do it because it makes them feel dizzy and unwell. But if you put them in an environment like this, then they're motivated to lean and do stuff because, hey, it's fun.
Woo!
Can you climb along there? Oh, my Lord. Oh, my God, there's a Spider-Man.
Nice one.
Okay, so that's an example of how you might motivate vestibular patients to do their exercises, do their leaning. Should we escape back to the lab now,
Yeah,
Elodie?
back to the lab. If I close that.
Oh. Let's go back to the lab.
All right, good.
There we go.
Okay, so now we've done medical education and we've done medical training, and Elodie's shown us medical diagnosis and medical treatment all in the metaverse. Completely mind-bending, it seems to me. And so, but we won't keep doing medical all day long. Instead, we'll switch tracks now and go down into the subway and have a look at the power of the metaverse engine for collaboration.
So if everybody can come inside the circle, so you don't...
Yep, everybody get inside of here.
Yep.
We're going to be going down
Okay.
the subway system. Woo!
Right, we're down. Woohoo! And we're going 50 meters down into the earth. It took me ages to dig this tunnel, needless to say. Excellent. Oh, no collider.
Oh, yep, you guys are falling down. You're gonna have to set the flag.
details like a missing collider.
A little bit.
Alright, so here we are in the subway that I built underneath the laboratory. And obviously this is a metaphor for the transport system that we would ideally like to have for connecting to collaborators all over the world, where you obviously don't really need to go by train, but I thought it would be fun to suggest that there were now tunnels and connections all over the earth, connecting different countries and different universities and different educators and different students together. So the train's leaving. Oh, we missed the train. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, no!
There it goes. Are you driving it? Wait, let me put on Fox.
That kind of suits you, actually. And
Yeah,
it's like
it
just the sort of
matches
train a
it.
guy dressed like that would drive.
Yep. It matches Frox. It's like the train of the future.
So along the wall here, you can see I put 20 of these giant logos. And the reason for that is
doesn't
that
fly,
these are
though,
the
Frox.
Sydney University's what they call preferred partners. So the university tries to collaborate with these universities in China and these others in Asia and these ones in Europe and some in America. That one's France, that one's in India. So these 20 institutions, the university is always saying, we want you to collaborate with these institutions. So the argument here was that wouldn't that be a lot if we could all just catch a train to Paris and have a meeting face to face in the goggles and show each other assets and collaborate together to build something, and then catch the train off to an American university at 3 o'clock and do another session, learn about physics or something, and then catch the train again back to Fudan University, which is a huge one in Shanghai in China. And basically with the metaverse, suddenly the potential for collaboration between these 20 institutions, which are currently physically located all over the Earth, becomes a reality and not just a nice idea, let's collaborate. At the moment, the uni's super keen to collaborate with Fudan University, and yet no one's really come up with a solution about how that's going to work. Are we going to talk on Skype, or are we going to fly to Shanghai once every 3 months? To me, it doesn't seem like that's going to build much of a collaboration. But with this metaverse engine, obviously, we can all be meeting together in a virtual space like this every day if we want to, 3 times a day. Down here is my second argument to the VC when we toured him here, which was the added benefit to using the metaverse engine for collaborative meetings like this is that you can massively reduce what's currently wasted in terms of cost and carbon. The idea being that this arrivals board shows the 20 destinations and then how many kilometres away they are. So this Toronto University, for example, is 15,500 kilometres away. And if you were to go there by aircraft, that would take you about 62 hours return trip and cost you about 2,600 Australian dollars. But the nasty thing is it would make 15.6 equivalent tonnes of CO2. So I was arguing, at least to the VC, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't need to make 15 tonnes of CO2? We didn't need to spend $2,600. We didn't have to fly for 60 hours return. We didn't have to cover 15,558 kilometres. Instead, if we go via the metaverse, the travel time from here to Toronto, which seems like quite a big improvement on 62.23 hours. Does anybody agree that's a much better way to go to Toronto? We could be there in 72 milliseconds. Why would you fly for 62 hours and make 16 tonnes of CO2? That makes no sense to me. The really important example here on the board is Utrecht University. Apparently the Utrecht University have decided that they're no longer prepared to make 16.6 tonnes of CO2 every time they fly to a conference in Australia. So they're no longer going to fly. And now this is a big problem for them because they can't go to conferences and they can't visit their colleagues and they can't do research and they can't go and learn courses and they can't basically do anything with this limitation, no more flying, unless they use the metaverse engine, in which case they can go to conferences and they can learn and they can educate and they can collaborate, and that's a huge benefit for them and everybody else on the earth that doesn't have to deal with the global warming associated with 16 tonnes of extra CO2. Now I'm looking at Outsider here because I know he's a bit of a skeptic about all of this stuff. But even if you're a skeptic about that kind of CO2,
shots fired.
Even you can see the benefit of not spending $2,794 that could otherwise be spent on VR headsets, and the 67 hours you could otherwise be spending with your friends in the metaverse engine. It's all right. So we prepared. If you've still got any stamina left for this, we prepared some of the examples of these kinds of collaborative efforts that are made possible if you go via the metaverse. So Elodie's going to pick something.
Which one? The CQU?
Yes, good idea. CQU.
Okay.
Hopefully this one's not too heavy. Got a lot of photos in it.
Yep, we can check that one out.
Hamish?
I think he's coming inside of here right now.
Oh yeah. Yep. It's here. Is it loading for you?
Yep, it's loading.
Yes, I'm in.
Okay.
Right, so what's going on here is I'm labouring the point that I just made about the tyranny of distance. The big problem we have in Australia is that we live in an enormous, enormous country. You know, if we factor in the Antarctic territories, I think technically Australia is bigger than the United States, unless you factor in, God knows where, Greenland, I suppose, this week, since you've just bought Greenland, haven't you? It's huge. The Australian, it takes us hours just to the other side of the country, which means that we have a fairly smallish population of sort of 25, 30 million spread out over enormous. And this is a clear example. We have colleagues at a different university called the Central University. They have
Sorry, it's lying.
20 campuses are arranged in a total distance between any two of sort of millions of kilometres. Each one of these 3D 360 photographs shows one of their campus destinations, which range everything from sort of fancy buildings in the city over here on the east coast, sort of outback tracks and dirt. And their problem is they rarely see each other. So recently we went to a research retreat for the Central Queensland University. All of these people flew from all over the country, burning lots of CO2, spending a lot of money to meet each other for what seemed like the first time. So they're colleagues in the same institution. They've never seen each other because they're spread out over this enormous area. So we argued, wouldn't it be nice if once a week you could come and have a meeting around this table and communicate with the people that you should be working with, teaching and educating. And
Hey Jenny, nice to see you again.
An explicit example of what that might look like. So yeah. Maybe for some of your countries, this is not such a big problem. I know the Czech Republic is only about the size of Tasmania. But the United States is kind of the same size as the continental Australia. So you guys could also benefit from not flying around from institution to institution or from campus to campus. Okay, let's escape out of here, Elodie. We're back at the train, and then can we have another example? Can we have archaeology? I think that's a cool example.
Yep. Ooh.
Let's do some archaeology.
Sounds good to me.
What's the one up there?
I believe so. Establishing connection. Who was that? Who's that burping person?
Okay, let's head inside the archaeology.
Loading in, it seems.
Can we have some equipment, Ellie, from your inventory? Some spades and some stuff? And I'll have to do it myself.
Yep, it's everybody loading inside the areas once, as well as the other one had a lot of different animated objects, so
yes,
I can cause it too.
I'm pushing your system pretty hard here, I have to admit.
That's
it's
good.
Because we're used to using the metaverse on the LAN, and as I say, I'm not too good at optimizing yet. But anyway, it's safety week this week, so everybody needs hard hats.
Oh, thank you. Let me get one of those. Put a hard hat on me.
I'm not sure that they're equipable, unfortunately.
Oh, boo.
That's another
Boo.
skill. That's another skill I need to learn. Oh, you can teach me to make an equipable anytime.
Oh, yes, I know.
Right. Here is this trowel.
Essentials.
I'm learning even now.
Spawn this out. Yep. We select take one of the
Wait,
heads,
this
put
is
it
an
there.
avatar. Oh. This is an avatar.
And that's it?
And should make it equipable.
Excellent. See how easy things are now in the metaverse. Once upon a time, I would have had to dig into the inspector window to do that, and now someone has made a beautiful tool. This looks like a business lawyer tool from the decorations. This guy has saved me more. It's hard to estimate how much time that guy has saved me so far with the eye setup machine.
So this is a 3D
mouse setup machine.
This is a 3D scan, right?
Yes, exactly. So here we're all standing in a hole in the ground that's somewhere. I think it's in the United Kingdom, and it was inhabited 4,000 years ago by some family that had a wooden lid over the top. And this is this kind of place that it's not easy to go unless you get on another aeroplane full of another 16 tons of CO2. For Australians, at least, we don't see a lot of, apart from the Aboriginal stuff, of course, we don't see a lot of this kind of, unless we do a field trip at vast expense and we all get on a plane and fly to Europe. So this is another example of how you can teach and learn and research inside a digital asset, which is, to me anyway, if you have a close look, it looks, I'm thinking, a lot like the real hole in the ground somewhere in Europe. And you can do precision measurements with you take photographs of particular aspects of the environment that you think are important and then send the photograph to your colleague, or you can mess around with the lighting and the weather to try and see it at different times of the day or different seasons, or cover it in snow, or a whole lot of stuff that would kind of be impossible any other way, even with access to the real asset. So we think this is a cool example. And another one that you can implement in about 10 minutes using the engine. I don't know how long this might have taken in any other environment, but it was literally another 10-minute build using the power of the metaverse engine.
Awesome. Really, really cool stuff.
Okay, let's exit, Elodie.
Yep.
All right, we're back to the hub of all things interactive and collaborative. What else is interesting from this lot? Hornsby.
Crash.
I think it's too scary. I don't want to do it to these poor guys. What is Hornsby too heavy?
We can try.
Let's all try this world, Hornsby.
I'm gonna take off.
Oh, see you outside, Red.
Yeah, it was great hanging out.
See you, man.
Bye.
Thanks again for helping with all this modeling.
Great night.
Yeah, no problem. It's awesome to see it again.
That and a ton of other avatars and other people loading in. Because usually when they're showcasing a lot of this stuff out at the university, they already have it preloaded, and they usually only have one world open. Okay, cool.
So this world is supposed to speak to a completely different category of collaborative endeavour. This is supposed to talk about industry partnership. So at the moment, a world is loading for you that's a model of a train station in Sydney called Hornsby Station. And the idea here is that the Sydney Trains, who are the people who run the train system in what is quite a huge city by even world standards. Sydney is spread out over many, many thousands of square kilometres, so it's quite a big network. And the Sydney Trains people are very excited about collaborating with an institution like Sydney University to try and improve their training. So the big one we're working on at the moment is track work, where human beings still have to physically dig around and mend the sleepers and deal with missing bolts and straighten the tracks and all of that kind of stuff. But you kind of don't want to be doing that with trains. And the problem is they do that with trains. So they don't block off a track because there's a million people need to get to work. Instead, they use what's called a train spotter. So a guy 100 metres down the track just watches for trains. And when he sees a train coming, he warns the rest of the track workers, there's a train coming, get off the track. Now, you can imagine how horribly wrong a situation like that could go without the right training. Basically, all of those co-workers could be pretty significantly squashed by one of these gigantic Tangaras like the one behind us. And they are very excited about doing the training to make sure that doesn't happen. And I thought it was a cute example because Now we've done collaboration with other institutions, and we've done collaboration with other researchers doing things like archaeology, which are totally out of our world of experience. And now we're talking about doing collaboration with industry partners, where these are the two industry partners advertised. That's cute, isn't it?
Here,
And that's now a whole new category of potential application of the metaverse engine, and one that I'm sure Froxius is very much aware of is that businesses are going to want a piece of this engine, something big time. They're going to want to do their training, and they're going to want to do their product showcasing, and they're going to want to do everything basically on a platform that makes it as easy as this. So you must be getting inquiries coming left, right, and centre, I'm guessing.
Eventually, soon, I would imagine.
Companies like using it like for training, but essentially it's just a matter of like getting the word out there and showcasing it, I think.
Well, at least I can tell you that of all the sort of industry partners that we've shown it to, we've had 100% enthusiasm so far. You know, when they see a model like this, and they're used to training using a sort of a child-size version of this with, you know, little toy trains and changing the colour of the lights and things, they find this completely mind-bending that can be on the platform, and they can deal with difficult customers who refuse to pay their fares, or they can detect suspicious looking bags hidden underneath the stairs that may or may not have explosive devices in them, and they can have, you know, any weather and any time of day, and they can basically, the potential applications are just open-ended. Even within that narrow context of Sydney trains, there's a thousand important applications.
Hey, Hamish, somebody made the joke saying training. Haha.
So what command do I have to type in to explode someone on Twitter?
It was on Twitter.
Amazing.
Oh, that's terrible. You better keep your day job, whoever that was. Okay, so let's escape from industry partnerships.
Yep.
So just let me know when you're getting sick of it.
Oh no! As much as you'd like to continue, because this is really good content that we can have like clips for.
All right, so I don't think there's any reason to go to the space station, but can we go to the Faculty of Science hub?
Yep.
And can you bring one of these print models there? Because I realised that the 3D printer is a good example for maths.
Ah, you want the 3D printer? Okay.
Yes, please.
Now?
Which one is this?
Yep. And then we're all going to this one called the Petal Science HOS.
Okay, perfect. We are going to the HOS world right now.
Yep.
Yep. I remember this one.
Right,
You and me, Pearl
yeah.
Prime, helped put up the signs
Yep.
inside this one.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to say in this particular environment, is to talk about the community, the NEOS community, which is even more amazing to me than the technology, which is easy for me to say because he has to do the technology. But the community, completely mind-bending. So the other day we were really stuck for time. We had 6 NEOS presentations in 5 days.
Oh, I think he crashed.
Oh no. Because he's talking about technology.
Why are you?
Here, but let's at least like show.
Okay, he's coming back.
Oh, yep, there he
yeah,
is.
he's here.
Blaze already did the Froxies, huh?
Sorry about that. So yeah, we had an hour to build this world, and I thought we're never going to get this world finished. So we opened it and we started building, and Elodie was standing in here trying to work out how she was going to get it finished. And in from the community teleported a couple of people, Nextland arrived, and
Probable
Probable
Prime.
Prime arrived, and somebody else arrived. And of course, being the NEOS community, the first thing they said was, "Oh, what are you doing? Can we help?" And I heard this voice from the computer in the lab, and I thought, "Oh, thank God, the cavalry have arrived." And Nextland and Probable Prime and the third person got busy, and they started populating this world for us by putting the labels and fixing the textures and starting the animations and getting everything looking as nice as it does now. And so this was an example of a... Did I just...
No, you're still back.
I've got a big stutter. Hang on. Do you still hear my voice?
Yeah,
Yep.
we can still hear you.
Okay, then I've just got a minor technical issue. So yeah, basically this was a 1 hour build, and you can see what's going on around the outside of the hub. Is we've basically populated one petal with each of the schools that make up the Faculty of Science. And technically psychology is in the Faculty of Science, so this is our faculty, so these are our closest potential collaborators, where the joke of putting each school on one petal is this is kind of what universities traditionally look like, where people in veterinary science never have anything to do with people in psychology, and psychology never has anything to do with maths, and maths never has anything to do with the School of Life and Environmental Sciences. We each exist on these little islands, little isolated silos. But the potential of the metaverse engine, of course, is we can bring all of these islands together and join up on this center platform where the entire faculty can collaborate together. And for the purposes of this demo, we've made some simple assets on each of these petals, but also some worlds that dig a bit deeper into what the metaverse can do for mathematics and for School of Environmental Sciences and for psychology. Are you still in there, Elodie?
Yep.
So can you take over this part while I change computers and tell them all about what's going on around on the petals?
Yeah, so on the petals, can we start maybe with what I know best, which is psychology. So if we go over here on the psychology petal, so we've got two brains, and this is, you okay? Okay. And then what we can see here on so we have several worlds. If you want to open the first world, the sliding noise, and we will talk about visual.
Okay, so we're gonna head over to the new one.
Guess we're going over.
It might be RAM, but I think it's more network.
Loading, yes, slowly.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
All right, so here we are in a very, very minimalist template world in which there are some examples of the kind of stuff that research... Oh, sorry.
Can I just is it okay to kind of close the inspectors? Just so we can have a bit more friendly.
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay, I just get rid of them.
You see, they're old-fashioned inspector windows.
Here, let me get rid of that.
So close the inspector.
Yeah, these ones are
Yeah,
very
this
old.
one.
This is a pretty old world.
I know, right? We can get rid of these cameras maybe as well.
Yeah, good
Perfect.
idea.
Right. How's that?
There we go.
Much better.
All right, good. I'd forgotten how heavy inspector windows are. In fact, it always amazes me that inspector windows can be the heaviest thing in a world, heavier still than really complex three-dimensional models. It's again my...
It's gonna change too. I'm gonna... essentially the reason is the system they are using is really old, so it's gonna be rewritten and it's gonna be much lighter, but right now they take a lot of performance. That's just so you can continue.
So, as I was saying, this is the sort of stuff that psychologists get excited about. It's not all about asking people how they feel about their mothers and, their emotions and lie down here and tell me. No, sometimes it's about trying to understand how our perception works. So auditory perception and tactile perception and visual perception. And obviously, virtual reality is super good for messing with your visual perception. Some of the stimuli that are in this room are kind of strange. If you notice this spiral, for example, over here, is not working. Bear with me. Maybe that's not... this spiral, sorry. So there's a spiral over here that's rotating clockwise in one of your eyes and anti-clockwise in the other one of your eyes.
Oh, that
so
is
if you
very
close,
hard to
if
look
you
at.
wink, that is hard to look at, isn't it, basically? And the reason why we're interested in stimuli like this is because it helps understand how the visual system works if you trick it into doing weird things like this. So this particular stimulus is called binocular rivalry, where one of your eyes is trying to tell your brain, this thing's going clockwise, and the other eye is trying to tell your brain, this thing is going anti-clockwise, and your brain has to try and make sense of it. And the room is kind of full of sort of bizarre stimuli like that. Drums that look like they're rotating one way in one eye and the other direction in the other eye. And these strange things called random dot patterns, which have unusual effects when you superimpose one random dot pattern onto another random dot pattern. Your brain is then forced to decide, is this the thing moving left or is this the thing moving right? And depending on the depth and the size and the rate, basically, you can modulate the way your brain makes sense of stimuli like these. And we think that, the engine is obviously a fantastically powerful way to mess around with these stimuli. Traditionally, people sit down and they type for a week on MATLAB to get one of these little stimuli working. And then they stare at their computer and they think, doesn't really look like what I anticipated. So they go back to typing on MATLAB for another week. And eventually they get the stimulus that they first imagined, and they can do their experiment to understand, does this work the way I think it works? But in the metaverse, obviously, you can get really creative and you can get experimental in real time. So I can, without having to sit in MATLAB for a week, I can wonder, what happens if I put a sliding random dot pattern like this one in front of a sliding grid pattern like that? Oh, whoa, that looks really strange.
That's nice.
Or what happens if I mess around, make basically combinations of different stimuli and different arrangements of stimuli that would otherwise be unforeseen. Basically, you can notice things by just playing around that tell you something new, and then you can implement them as a science project or as a research project. So we think that's a cool application for virtual reality.
Now, mind you guys,
visual
what we're seeing inside of VR is probably something completely different than you're seeing inside of chat, because we're wearing a headset where it's showing out an image for one eye and it's showing out another image for the other eye. So what you're seeing on the stream probably isn't what you'd see in VR, because in VR it looks really different.
Which is exactly why this kind of experimentation doesn't work on a flat monitor. And you can see over here is what the solution to that problem, the traditional solution to that problem, is a device called a stereoscope. So normally you have to get a subject to sit in a chair like this, put their chin on a chin rest, and stare through a device that splits their vision into two parts. And then one eye is then looking at one side of a screen, and the other eye is looking at the other side of the screen. And you can deliver two different stimuli to two different eyes, but only by using this crazy contraption that was invented in, the 18th century to try and solve this problem. With virtual reality, we don't have to do that, basically. We can fully control what each eye sees without having to have these crazy contraptions.
Okay. Are we going back?
Yes, please.
I also like that you implemented VR inside of VR.
Yeah, that's
basically.
That's our inception moment, basically.
VR in VR. Here, wait. Let me show what it's on your perspective, Frox. So put your eyes inside there again, Frox.
Oh, okay.
And you can see he's putting on a VR headset.
Can you see?
He's in VR while in VR.
This is only partially for fun. In a minute, we're going to show you an application of VR in VR for procedural distraction. So I was just playing games at this point, but actually this is really useful to have VR in VR.
And just this one.
Do you want to kick us all out of there, Elodie?
Hey, we're already making Neos VR inside of Neos VR. That's the beauty of it. It builds up itself.
Right, so that's an example of an application in physics. And basically there are 7 more, so we really can go science faculty if we feel the inclination, where I don't really have an example of the next petal, which is the history and philosophy of science. But last night I realised, oh, actually that's going to be probably one of the most interesting petals, because I think on this petal we could populate all of the amazing discoveries over time through science, and we could talk about splitting the atom, and we could talk about producing vaccines, and we could talk about the discovery of the X-ray and all of the amazing stuff that's happened over what's kind of a short history of science, but a history that's completely changed the way all of us live and the devices that we have, such as the one on our heads even now. It's all come from via the history and philosophy of science, so maybe it's more interesting than I thought. Did someone get this watch working?
Maybe.
How did you do that? Wow, I didn't think it worked.
Already
works.
the fast potential things to come inside of Neos. And now we already got
crazy.
moving.
So yeah, obviously I wanted an asset on this thing that this one's supposed to suggest philosophy, and this one's supposed to suggest history and mechanical stuff, sciencey stuff over time. The next petal, however, is geosciences, and we do have some assets for geosciences, which is the new term for geology. So one of the cool assets that I've got here is this map, which shows you the focal point of every earthquake over the last 10 years. And the reason why I think this one's amazing is because it has the depth of the earthquake, not just the location on the surface. So again, for people at home watching the chat, this just does not work on a flat screen. But in 3 dimensions, this is absolutely mind-bending, because you can basically see the way that the tectonic plates are arranged on the Earth.
Yeah, you can see the depth to it. You can see the depth of
descending into the
amount of
There's a cluster here.
Oh, there was some recent discoveries on Earth's core using data from lists of testing sites.
Definitely, if you guys have a VR headset, you should check. Would it be okay if I have a copy of this SHFR?
Oh, of course, yes, please. Yeah, that's cool, isn't it? So instead of doing seismic stuff with explosions, you use really big existing explosions. It's a cute idea. And other examples of stuff you can get going in no time flat with NEOS. This is a map of the Earth where I can adjust the time by 200 million years. So this is what the Earth looked like 200 million years ago, when it's unrecognizable, as you can see. All the continents are different shapes, and I think this one's called Gondwana land as opposed to North America. But if I move the slider on this, I can bring the map of the Earth forward by 20 million years, 30 million years, 50 million years, 100 million years. Eventually I can get up to the present day, and now the Earth starts to look recognisably like it does for us, where Australia is the shape of Australia and India is the shape of India. But, you know, it's easy to forget that the Earth didn't always look like this, and that it's constantly evolving and plates are changing shapes. And over the sorts of time spans that the Earth cares about, this is a dynamic process, even though we think it's kind of static over the course of tiny lifetimes like 100 years. What else is here? I had the wind turbine, of course, because it's one of the potential solutions to some of our major environmental problems. What is it? There's nothing in this geo world that we want, is there? No, it's too heavy. All right, so now we're going to move on to chemistry. The next petal, and the next one of the more interesting schools in the Faculty of Science is the School of Chemistry. And there's a couple of assets on here that talk about being able to disassemble and reassemble molecules, kind of a classic example of virtual reality, but one that is implementable in about 10 minutes using the engine, as opposed to God knows how long using traditional methods. The other assets on this petal talk to some research being done by our colleagues at the Brain and Mind Institute, where they're trying to do drug discovery. They're trying to find new forms of synthetic THC that may or may not help people with, for example, with uncontrolled seizures. And the last example is the one we were talking about earlier, where this is the classic molten salt solution, molten salts experiment, where if you burn different kinds of salt, you get different colors and you can make a rainbow. But this is the experiment that went horribly wrong a few years ago and burnt a student in the United States quite badly. And we were talking about how that particular student got a payout, which in Australian dollars is worth $85 million last week. And it made me wonder, well, can chemistry really afford not to do some training with experiments like this before they mess around with the real thing in future in order to avoid
Absolutely.
disasters
I actually had this idea a year ago of thinking of all the different stuff that you could do through chemistry to have certain reactions that normally you would never want to be able to do, but you could reenact in VR. And you could have those chemical reactions to, for an educational standpoint, which I think that there's a lot of potential, especially if they invested that amount of money to modelers or animators to make those animations, make those effects as realistic and as real as possible.
Yeah, with, as I say, the added benefit of safety and reduction in cost, because chemicals are very expensive. You can burn through hundreds of dollars worth of chemicals doing a demonstration like that. Virtually, you could do it over and over again for nothing. Are we going to enter one of these chemistry worlds, Elodie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, let's head inside there.
Okay. All right, so we're all hitting that top molecule.
I like how he called the world orb a molecule.
You get for nothing if you use the metaverse. It's full of expensive-looking objects and equipment and glassware and Bunsen burners and posters about the periodic table and fume hoods. And
hey, just don't start mixing chemicals yet.
Yeah, where some of the stuff in here is just for looking at, but some of it's implemented. So we implemented over here, for example, the use of a pipette. So if I grab this pipette, so the important thing when using a pipette apparently is that you have to keep remembering to jettison the tip, because otherwise you'll contaminate your chemicals. So you see on this particular pipette I can jettison the tip. If I can remember how to do it. Yes, jettison the tip. So now the tip is gone. Now I go and get a fresh tip from my stash of tips. Now I have a new tip. Now I can sample the particular chemical that I want, in this case the red chemical, and then try and place the red chemical into the cells on this. Yeah, it's working. So hang on, let me sample that again. Can't remember which button samples the chemical.
Can't hear you at all here.
Yep, the laws of chemicals will never change, so programming out right will always be right, which is the way it should be.
Yeah, so there's no point doing the same chemical experiment over and over again. You can virtualize it seems to me. So yeah, this part of the room is supposed to show that you can do detailed or complicated procedures that require some dexterity. The one in the middle is again talking about assembling molecules. Someone's madly mixing chemicals over there like a maniac.
Yeah, see, this is the exact reason why you do want to have something like this for VR, so then you don't have somebody crazy like Aegis mixing all the chemicals together. Because, yeah. Oh, there you go. Already starting to get a reaction. Yep, that's exactly what you wouldn't want.
That's exactly what you wouldn't want, precisely. If you're going to have an explosion like that, it's best to do it virtually.
Some salt and some pepper.
Some salt and pepper. That's not salt and pepper. Oh, wait, no, that...
Yes.
Anyway, I think that's completely crazy that you can have access to facilities like this without any additional cost. There are a lot of schools and institutions in Australia that would never be able to afford a chemical lab as well equipped as this. But with virtual reality, you can basically cut and paste to make 10 more labs for
Hey,
exactly like this
SHFR, do we have any chemical X?
What's chemical X?
Never mind. That's for
sounds
Blaze. It's for somebody was saying recreate the Powerpuff Girls intro.
Do you have the recipe?
I think it's sugar, spice, and everything nice, but you gotta add chemical X. But I don't think we have any chemical X here, so sorry, you guys.
Oh well. Next time we'll make Chemical X or something else more profitable, like crystal methamphetamine or something.
Oh my gosh.
All right, let's leave the chemistry lab before people start making crystal methamphetamine. All right, so what have we got next? Now we're at souls. So the idea with the School of Environmental Sciences is that the catch line on their website says, "Study souls. We will take you from the forest to the farm, to the bottom of the sea, to the lab, and everywhere in between." And so we thought, oh, this would be a cool demo. We'll implement a world that has a forest in it, a world that has a farm in it, a world that has a reef in it, and we'll basically build what they are saying they're going to do over the course of an entire year, but in 10 minutes. I think reef is the one that maybe is worth going to. Should we go to reef?
Yeah.
Wait.
She's just...
Yeah, let her open up first.
What?
Okay, cool. Now we can head inside of there.
Under the sea.
Yep, we are under the sea.
And then your computer's a little bit with 3 really heavy photogrammetry assets, some of which I may not load for you.
Oh, is this actually an underwater ship?
Yes.
It was once upon a time a ship, and yes, now it's an underwater ship.
Wow.
A bit like a submarine, but not.
That's crazy. So now, did they do the scan of the ship while it was underwater?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, so they dive with cameras and they can take photos from every perspective and rebuild it with photogrammetry. Where this is a nice example that was...
Oh, somebody's loading inside the world. Give me a sec, you guys.
Where that is that the coral is just one creature at a time. Singular organisms can construct an entire city size.
You're probably going to have to repeat what you said, SHFR, because it was loading this model itself because it's very, very large.
Yes, it's seriously chunky, isn't it? As I say, this was an asset we were showing on the land. It's not quite as taut as trying to load it through the internet. Is it visible for you now?
But it's incredible seeing it inside VR.
You see all the structures.
Yeah, I think that's their calibration device, this little cube here.
Oh, I see. That's what those cubes are.
I think that gives them a sense of scale afterwards. That must be a 10-centimetre cube or something. You see up in the top of the water up there, there's the dive boat that's waiting to collect us again later, and a guy descending from the dive boat over here is... Oh, the fish! Excellent!
Oh, we got fishes.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That is so cool.
Whoa.
Oh, you got to let us have the fish. That's fantastic.
This actually looks really cool. And someone's immediately placing down a battleship, of course.
Yes. Welcome to America.
And Brock is just being a school of fish. Oh, I get it. Anyway.
Boom. We need another boom.
Oh no, the fish are out of the water.
Or whatever it's called. Whatever that actual drum thing is called.
So, I think basically I don't need to keep labouring this point, do I? Basically, in order for a class at the School of Environmental Sciences to go and experience a piece of Great Barrier Reef, a shipwreck, and whatever this thing is, they would have to go all the way up to Queensland and dive on the reef and risk being eaten by sharks and all of that. And, all of that's good. Obviously, we're not proposing that people shouldn't do real diving and that they shouldn't do real chemistry. But what we're saying is you can
got something
massively
for you,
broaden
Tara.
your potential accessibility if you can virtualize places and like this as well as doing real things. So yeah, bottom of the sea, classic example.
Okay, so anything that we missed?
When it's finished. So basically, we've just started the 3D printer, which is converting a text file into a 3D object. Now, obviously, this is a ridiculous way to import a model into NEOS. When NEOS supports 1 million billion different types of 3D model file already, I could have just opened the STL of the object, and instead I'm printing it out piece by piece. And eventually, someone will say it's another.
It's a lot cooler this way.
It is a lot cooler, isn't it? And a lot more educational. That's our argument.
Yep, so
I
you
can
can
see why.
if you can see it actually 3D printing it, or how a 3D printer would 3D print it.
My dogs are freaking out. I need to mute.
Oh, look at that. Isn't that awesome?
And then when it's finished, now you can grab it because the extruder is switched off. So now this is an actual object in NEOS, and I can do all the same things I can do to any other object. I can duplicate it and give one to each person. Only the way it got into NEOS was via a 3D printer instead of via a model file, and that to me was really exciting basically on the day. But I was saying while Nixlam was crashed that the reason why this is kind of maths related is not only because the Klein bottle is a particularly interesting mathematical shape, having 4-dimensionality, but also because this was where I was trying to get what's called a delta printer to print that print, and I couldn't solve the maths. So I needed some reverse kinematics here to make these arms move in a coordinated fashion, and I didn't know how to do it. And so until physics is released and that all of this becomes
Thank you for the follow,
becomes
sir.
mute, or until my maths improves, it sits here waiting, looking semi-finished basically. All right, so we'll escape from 3D printing land.
Oh, it kind of pops me back inside of this world because I wasn't inside the other one. Yep, printing in VR, yeah, I know, right? It's really cool. Here, let me join them in the Pedal HOA's Science Lab. But yeah, just seeing like something 3D printed out inside of here in VR just looks awesome. I'm sure it could be done with a lot of other models.
Alright, so we've basically done psychology already. Veterinary science, I want to actually jump to physics because I'm worried that I'm going to run out of time. I'm not going to see what the world that I made would have for you.
I got one question for the 3D printing, like several person was asking, is using actual G-code.
Yeah, so what I did was I took an STL file and I sliced it with a slicer to make G-code, and then I massaged the file a little bit to make it a bit friendlier for NEOS. So if I was a wizard like these guys, I probably could have parsed a G file, a traditional G file. What I did was I massaged the file a little bit so that all the values were equally spaced, and then it was really easy to read the first 5 numbers for X, the second 5 numbers for Y, and the third 5 numbers for Z, and then I knew the next line was always 23 numbers later, and I could work through the file using dumb logic like that. With a parser, I could have said, give me all the values and just use the original G file, and I hope to switch it to G files at some point, because I think that would be cute to be able to bring in your file, stick it on the printer, print out some object and take it away, stick it in your inventory. Would be kind of fun.
Hopefully that answered your question, Servo. Because they were asking about if it used actual G-code.
Yeah, so it did intermittently on the way to the special file that I massaged it into. It was G-code, yeah.
That's so
All right,
cool.
so in physics, I was thinking we could go and have a look at the telescope I made yesterday, because I know Foxius loves telescopes.
Ooh, telescope.
So let's all
Perfect. Yeah, let's go there.
VLT sky.
Ooh.
Alright, so he's already got it. He's turning the telescope around. It weighs 40 tons, so that takes some doing. Unfortunately, only I wouldn't open those doors if I were you, because it's daytime. You need to use the first slider to make it nighttime, otherwise you're going to cook your instruments. Okay, now it's nighttime, excellent. Now you've got the doors open, that's good, and you're tilting down the telescope in order to point it at some constellation or other. And yeah, I think Froxius has already realised the thing that I thought was cute about this one is because you can see yourself in the mirror with the universe behind you in the sky. It was kind of fun to come and wave in the giant mirror and say, oh wow, we're in space.
Oh wow.
Yep, so if you guys can see that.
This is actually like imagine like how big it actually is. Like they would probably never let you like get this close.
Yeah, and this is the aptly named Very Large Telescope, which is part of the European astronomy system. And it's in Chile so that they can get as close to the equator as possible and as high as possible in the mountains and somewhere far away from other human beings and their light pollution. But it is a monster, isn't it? And this is just one of 4 large telescopes they have in this facility and 4 smaller ones that can be connected together into a virtual telescope. So I thought it was kind of cool to be able to see the scale of a facility like this, especially for astronomy students that are unlikely to get either to Chile or to get time on a facility like this, which must cost, I don't know, $10,000 an hour or something to use a telescope of this magnitude. In virtual reality, you can have a telescope this size yourself. And, you know, I got excited about, well, maybe you could... I've seen some of the wizards in the metaverse connect NEOS up to external databases. So, for example, someone's got an image searching application where you can use Google Images to find a picture of some typed-in object. I thought it'd be super cool if you could connect this to one of the virtual telescope simulators that are out there in the world and get an image on your computer screen that's associated with wherever you're pointing this bad boy.
It would actually be this thing right here.
There's the example of how you can connect the metaverse to external asset libraries, or where astronomy would be a typical example of online virtual telescope images.
And it kind of has a dial-up speeds when searching it out, but I really do feel though. Oh, there it is. And then you can even have it out and have the images.
That's fantastic.
But I really do feel like Neos, like for the things that people imagine, like how VR should have been, like I feel like we're really answering those like goals or answering that passion for how people imagine like for VR actually being used out for educational purposes, for it being used to have so much more help for also for creativity and art. And so many different aspects of like how Neos is shaping out, and I'm so thankful to see it grow in this sort of a way.
I could say we're very thankful to have access to it, that's for sure. Without this, without the engine, we'd have no chance of building any of these things that we've shown you so far today. We'd be back stuck in Unity trying to do some...
Yeah, and I remember that perfect example of what it showed of somebody working on Unity for an hour or two, and then people inside of Neos working together inside of it, and how much you were able to accomplish in that small amount of time. It was
completely mind-bending.
Yeah.
It was a pretty sorry indictment for the Unity boffins that day, that's for sure. Anyway. But, you know, I think the other thing that I learned building this model was that you know, people who know a lot more about astronomy than I do are obviously a crucial part of building assets like this. So straight away someone told me that the green laser beam that I had on the telescope was no, that's wrong. They have to be yellowy orange because that's a sodium laser beam, and it's a sodium laser beam because they need to be able to filter out sodium when they're searching for different atoms in some constellation on the other side of the galaxy, basically. And you realise, oh wow, you really need an expert on board to make a virtual reality asset useful for education and research, and not just kind of make it up yourself.
Oh no.
But slowly we're getting more and more people that know what their own area to participate, and on the strength of that we'll build some really crazy and useful things for students, we think.
Hey, we're trying to be serious here. Don't just place the Death Star in the middle of space.
Yes, you can put it there and we can shoot it.
It's just really cool, like, just sitting here and like watching like that machine move around while you
I
control
know,
it.
it must be 50 tons or something. You know, the
Yep.
crazy...
So actually move the machine around so then this. Let me actually put on my perspective so you guys can see. He's controlling it right now through the sliders and buttons. So then they actually move around the whole telescope.
Bring it towards us.
And mind you, all of the logics, all of the stuff to make this thing move was done out and made out in VR inside of Neos.
And you know, my fantasy is that
move
some students perhaps
pivot on
might
the
build the operating center here on this platform where this kind of image would turn up on the screen depending on where you point the telescope, and that they could actually learn something useful about operating this facility without wasting $10,000 a minute.
Huh. So how long do you think it would take for this to actually be fully implemented as an education system onto this game?
Yeah, so basically what I'm really excited about is trying not to completely finish worlds like this. I'm really excited about trying to get students to get excited and finish it themselves. So ideally, this is the point at which I'd like a bunch of students from astronomy to tell me, no, those beams are the wrong color, and to get the other 3 telescopes working, and to build a control center with computer screens and seats and things, and that they would therefore get excited about using the engine themselves. And so this is a kind of where I want to stop on this one, just enough to whet their appetites. And how long it would take them to do that? Not bloody very long, I'm thinking. You know, maybe they could do that in a day, something completely easy like that. And, you know, then they can take it back to their professors and say, oh, yeah, we fully built the very large telescope in Chile today using the metaverse engine, and that their professors will start to realise, oh, God, this really is the future of education if my students can build a $500 million facility in an afternoon. All right, let's get out of here, Elodie. Oh, look, somebody else has got a telescope.
What are you doing?
Wait, let me... That is not a telescope.
Mode up, there it goes. There it goes. It's going to eject the disk.
Yeah, it's going towards the Death Star. So educational.
Can't we point our lasers at the Death Star with the right control on there? You'd be able to get the lasers blasting that. Oh, stay tight.
Oh, jeez, whoa, what was that? It's suddenly sunrise.
Whoa! Praise the sun! Praise the sun! Hey, get it!
Ah, yes, I see that Dante is shooting first. What is happening?
All right, Elodie's going to close this one because we've done physics. We're nearly done. We nearly made it. So we've done physics. We've done history and philosophy. We've done geosciences. We've done chemistry. We've done souls. We've done mathematics. We kind of... VET is the last one. Maybe we'll do one world on VET and then we'll call it quits. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
We've done every school in the Faculty of Science. So let's decide, do we want to see ticks on dogs, or do we want to see... Maybe we want to see the museum. I think it's kind of cool.
The vet museum?
Yeah, it's empty at the moment, but we can build it ourselves, which speaks to the power of collaboration and content creation. All right, we're here. So a second ago, I was talking about how excited I am about students building their own assets. So this is another attempt to try and get the students excited, where I built this giant sort of museum amphitheatre thing, and I asked them, right, you build something interesting in there. So the assets that I was going to let them run amok with was skeletons. If I go to skeletons, I'll start bringing some skeletons, and you guys can help me lay them up around the outside of this giant museum with a view to imagining we're students and we're getting excited about osteology, which is the study of bones and stuff. And there's one dismantleable one.
Random bones indeed.
Here's another dismantleable one.
Cool. And I'll set some of these around. Be sure to grab them by the platform. Or Or well,
Yeah, if
that
they're
one or the other.
dismantleable, they'll have a red. There's a, I think that's a horse. I've got a camel here.
Yeah, that's a horse.
It's a bit of scaling this camel.
I can't see it. Oh, there it is. I don't see it.
Slowly they'll This is a
So are
mountain
these actually,
mountain
like,
lion.
So are these like full proper 3D scans, or are they just like really high poly, like high detailed models?
These are just models.
I don't know the answer to that. I think they're models, yeah. Otherwise,
Why?
opening this many would really torture you.
You're very small.
I've scarred myself. Sorry.
Yep, you just.
You turn into a leprechaun.
You get it.
Here comes a primate, our closest cousins. Here's a snail that represents people still using Unity. I mean, not a snail, a tortoise, I should say. Here's a vulture
Shots
for
fired.
people. People who think they're still going to have a job using Unity.
Well,
Extra shots fired. That was a whole cannon shot fired.
There's a penguin. And yes, let's bring the whale. I think, is the whale here already? No.
Where's the whale?
Let's bring the whale, because we can get a full-size whale going on in a room this size.
yeah.
Oh my god.
That looks so weird.
It does look very. Oh dear.
Oh dear, oh god. Someone's broken it.
Looks like a dragon almost.
Who grabbed it? Who
Yes.
grabbed
Looks like a dragon.
Who grabbed the rib cage?
It's okay, we can put it.
Is this almost the proper scale of like a whale?
Yeah, they're
Or
big
is it
boys.
a lot bigger?
I think they talk about it being about the size of a double-decker bus. Certainly that's an excessively large tortoise.
Is this a dog right here? Are these the bones of a dog?
Where are you?
Right over here.
That would explain the fact that it's sitting down.
This one right here?
No, this is a monkey.
Oh, this monkey.
The one sitting on its bum.
Ah,
Oh.
gotcha. I think this is a. Oh yeah, so this is a dog. That's why the feet look
Yeah,
weird,
yeah.
because I was like, wait a minute, that ain't a dog's feet. Oh jeez, hang on. Oh,
Yes, that is definitely a dog.
Yeah, that one's the dog for sure.
So, okay, so in about 1 minute and 30 seconds, we fully populated a museum of osteology the way that students could build it themselves. So that's why it gets me excited about starting with an empty world and just letting the students go mad on it, is because, you know, they get motivated to learn this way, and they remember what they do in a rich environment like this, and they go away excited and tell their friends, come and play with my museum.
yeah, they could even like learn 3D modeling and like important stuff for this kind of future by doing this.
That's right. Yeah, because, you know, basically being able to operate virtual reality will be a big part of any student's future repertoire of skills, effectively. You know, more and more jobs are going to say, do you have VR experience? And the ones that come through uni that's not doing any VR are going to have to say, no, what's VR? And they're not going to get the jobs, basically, are they, if the world becomes increasingly digital and distributed and metaversey.
Yeah, I mean, the only real thing that's in Unity is VR chat, and even then that's pretty broken as far as virtual reality places go.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure we couldn't have done what we just did in VR chat, could we? Could we have imported a... No.
Not to
So-
this level of magnitude.
Because, like, if I really wanted to right now, I could literally import something, like, right now.
Mhm.
But I'm not going to. But you
Yeah.
can.
So what
That's why I don't see universities getting excited about VR chat as a research and education platform, but I definitely
Yeah.
see them getting excited about NEOS.
Absolutely. So, Amish, if you want, we could probably like end it off now because that's showing off quite a lot.
This is the last. This is the last world.
If you want,
finished.
If you want, we could also probably even just head back inside of the last room that we were in, and then you can just finalize it out and close it up. At least for the last one, and then you can discuss about any last things that you would want to end off, and thank you.
Sounds great. Can you dump us out, Elodie? Bingo.
Should we put the streamer house again?
Yeah, let's. So Frox is gonna send you an invite. Same with Elodie.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Also, thank you guys so much for being in the stream with us today, and we'll also be streaming just maybe for about like an hour more and answer any questions inside of the chat and just discuss about what we had over here during the stream. And I'm really thankful that we got this through because it's showcased a lot of the potential for how we can have this for an educational platform that other schools can really make use of NEOS. And who knows, for the years to come, more and more schools can actually really benefit from using a software like this. And Frox is sending me an invite.
Elodie, I need an invite on SHFR, not on... Okay, I've got one. Thank you.
I see. Hold on. Give me a sec.
Cool. So I'm going to join him on.
Where'd Prox go?
Arlex says, indeed, wish I had this growing up, but NEOS is a great example to help people with learning stuff in the future and even help others. Absolutely. That's the most benefit that I feel that NEOS has is the collaboration.
I think the stream went well.
Oh yeah.
I'm still streaming.
Yeah, we're still gonna be streaming.
Oh, yeah, it's really good so far.
Yeah.
Okay, let me put it on broadcast.
Okay, so great. Thanks again for having us. That's a quick tour of about a dozen of the 300 worlds that we've built so far on the strength of the amazing engine. And it just goes on and on. Every morning it gets me out of bed with the excitement and enthusiasm, thinking, oh wow, I've realised how I can make a telescope. So those people that are not part of this revolution are really missing the boat, in my opinion. I feel sad for people still flipping through textbooks or watching flat televisions. And for that, I'd like to thank you, Froxius. This is by far the most amazing thing I've ever seen, and you're the man responsible. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
And thank you so much for this wonderful presentation that you've done, and keeping through it, and also the amazing stuff that you keep pushing out with NEOS and making out all these amazing things that are really going to set it to that level to where people will understand that this is going to be the software to use for that sort of stuff for VR.
Yeah, and it's really the honor is on my side, because NEOS it actually started as an educational tool, and over time it became more general, so you can build out anything, can have social situations, but essentially having it used for so many diverse applications in the education and science, it makes me so happy to see all of it. So thanks to you as well, for using it and for building so many amazing things with it, and for showing us what you do.
Yes, not to mention the friendship. I consider you all friends now, having spent hours and hours in an engine like this. I never physically met some of you, but I feel like I know you.
Yeah, I think the reason why it feels that way is because we feel as if we're across from each other inside of a room, and it doesn't feel like we're thousands of miles away. Kind of feeling.
It's impossible. Yeah. It's impossible to communicate that to people, isn't it? You tell people, we stand in the middle of a lab and we talk to people in Europe and America like they're in the room. They just don't understand. But as soon as you put them into a situation like this, they go, oh my Lord, this is the future of research, education, social, you name it. This is where it's heading.
I really love how essentially our community can intermingle with you as well, because I know a lot of people there building out just from stuff things from games, but then essentially they start talking with you, see whatever you're making. And I think Aegis was actually working on his on the drone, And I forget, like it was like the drone from Halo or something, and we were like, oh, you can use it like for presentation, and this kind of like interaction where essentially you have connections that like normally would pretty much never happen. Where if somebody who's making a fun thing for a game is useful for like a presentation for education or science, I think it opens up a lot more like creativity than you otherwise would as well.
Yes, it's incredible, incredibly open-ended, almost such that my brain just wants to explode with the possibilities. You know, you can't possibly even scratch the surface in a 2-hour Twitch. It just goes on and on and on.
Hey.
Yep.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much,
Thank you very much.
FR Amish. And
thanks, Elodie, for driving all of those worlds. Just took us between I don't know how many planets.
Yep, thank you as well, Elodie.
Explaining all the vestibular stuff. Yeah. And now we can go and have the weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Bye bye, Elodie. See ya. Okay. Well, that was our first stream of showing off the educational potential of NEOS, done out by at the University of Sydney, and hopefully it paves the way for other universities. I know that there's also Frox can touch on some things about how his university, or which university was it from?
No, it's the because like there's a it's the not a little bit complicated, but like essentially there's this guy like I know from like a project like before, and he teaches at the Czech Technical University in Prague. And essentially this like earlier this year he ran a first semester teaching virtual reality using NEOS. And essentially right now like he's been working on a book for like teachers, and also like essentially push virtual reality more. And have it used not just for teaching the virtual reality itself, but essentially have it used as a tool for teaching other sciences and other areas. So there's also like essentially work being done in that area. He's very passionate about it, and he's been supporting NEOS since essentially its inception pretty much. So they're also very excited like what will come over there. And like actually you can see if you go in NEOS, there's a word called virtual reality lectures, and there's actually a set of worlds that he has made for his students, so they can actually try out like they can learn how to use virtual reality to build their own worlds, to build like to use the visual scripting and so on. So you can like check those out and see what he's up to. I can sometimes see him like in NEOS. He goes under the username PAKey.
Yep, PAKey, and it already shows that there's already other ways that it's already being used for the educational side of NEOS, and we really want to be supportive of more of that sort of thing, and hopefully this stream, maybe even another school or another project, people could utilize it and have it for their VR projects if they were to use something like Unity for trying to build out an experience or show off a VR demo or even have a conference inside of VR. They could use something like this platform to do it freely and be able to be a lot more quick about the process of them doing stuff, because
it definitely like simplifies the process, because you don't have to like deal. It's actually one of the reasons why NEOS was created in the first place, because like this platform, it started as educational software, because like back in 2013 and 2014 I was working on educational applications, and essentially we ran into several issues, and one of them was that building applications like the traditional way, like in Unity. The problem is you don't get how the application feels, because you cannot be inside of a headset while you are building it. Other problem was that it was you have to do a lot of work to make it multiplayer, so because you actually have like multiple students, or the teachers, or just multiple people interacting within the application. And yet another issue was that a lot of the other different applications I built, they were disconnected. So like I couldn't take the thing, like I couldn't take like a MRI visualizer I built as one demo and take it like to my other education application. They're like all like separate, isolated islands. And essentially NEOS was created to solve all of these problems at once, to make it where you can build inside of VR. Out of the building, it's inherently multiplayer. So not only like what you build is multiplayer, but the building process itself is multiplayer. And also everything's sort of interconnected. So you can take a thing from one world, put it into another, and essentially you don't have you need to solve like importing like some libraries and gluing the code together and making sure like it works. You just literally grab an object and bring it onto the road and it just works. And it opens up like it solves all of these like complex issues for you, so you can focus on the application you want to build. You can focus on what you want to do within the metaverse rather than how do you technically achieve it. So
yeah, and that's the thing that impresses me every single day is like the flexibility of this engine and how easy it is to import those models and move them around and edit them. What I would like to show also during this stream, would you be able to spawn out that MRI scan?
Yeah, I'm on it now.
Okay, perfect.
Testing assets. Very small. Have this one. Oop. Okay, this might take a little bit to load because it's a pretty big data set. So, but it's actually a thing. This is like because I originally. Wait, can you do it?
I can't see it yet on the stream. So.
Yeah. Hold on, give it a sec. There we go. I'll increase the step size a little bit. Decrease the threshold. Okay, let me know when you can see it. This is it's a little bit heavier because this is a volumetric, essentially it's a MRI scan.
Yep. It's still downloading on my side. It's at 72%.
Okay, it should pop up in a bit. But essentially this is the thing. I built this originally as a separate application. It was built like back in 2014, I think, or 2015, and somebody asked like, oh, can we use it like in motion? And I was like, oh, can we like draw inside of it? And I was like, oh, I have like drawing tools in my other application, like World of Comenius, but I don't have it in this one, and I have to like spend time like working it over, making it work with this one, making it work with the different control scheme, and there's just a lot of work we have to do on sort of like the plumbing for the applications, like just to get like the controls, to get like the interactions working. And it was essentially one of the like pressures or like motivators to build NEOS, like essentially make everything exist within a single universe, where essentially you have all the interactions, you have integrations with hardware. You don't care about like the technical parts like that, you care about the interactions you're having, that you're like grabbing something, but you do, like the object, it doesn't care how is it grabbed. That's essentially like a separate layer, and so I don't need to like solve, like I don't need to solve grabbing with the razor header, and to solve grabbing with touch controllers, index controllers, with lead motion, and so on. So.
Frox talks in a times 2 speed, and but that's how you know that he's a super genius.
What?
So why don't you just show the scanner so then the stream can see that.
So yes. Essentially this is actual like this scan of somebody's brain using MRI, and essentially this is volumetric data. So now if I take this thing, this can function as a slicer. So I enable slicing.
Oh,
the color.
The scan. Oh,
yeah, it's upside down.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, so I'm gonna grab this. I think this. Oh, hold on. And so this one has enabled gripping on everything, so I keep gripping on it instead of grabbing it. I just need to disable it really quick. It's good like for the character climbing, but it doesn't work too well when I have. Okay, gripping. Only grippable. And interferes. Okay, there we go.
Thank you, Prowl Prime, for that riffraff.
So you see, essentially, I can sort of slice this like this, and I can actually see the structure of the brain.
Yep. And get your face camera really into it, so then they can see right inside of there, and they can see like all the grooves.
Yeah, and you can see this is actually this is volumetric.
And you can change the colors of it as well, right?
Yes, I can actually take this, I can duplicate a slicer. So I can slice it like from 2 different directions. Or I can convert one of the slicers into a color, into a highlight. So you see essentially this creates like this kind of highlight within the brain, and I could slice it this way. So this allows me to highlight certain areas. And I have like this dialog where essentially I can control the material and I can change like their properties. So let's say I wanted to like visualize like soft tissues. I can restrict the input range. I'll offset it. And this is too high.
Somebody saying that red area is where Frock's awesomeness lives. Thanks, bro. Yep, this could definitely help people out in hospitals for diagnosis, and actually Neos has already been used for somebody who had actually a tumor inside of their brain, and there was, I believe, 6 different brain surgeons who actually went through and used Neos before they were about to go in to perform surgery on this person's brain. So it has already been utilized to actually help people and save lives.
So you can see, for example, if I change the range and let me amplify this a little bit more. Wait, this is new. Amplify it a little bit more. I want to go beyond the range.
So Servo is asking, is there a world with an MRI scan in it?
No, this one we cannot like put completely public because it's essentially personal like patient data. We can like showcase it, but we need to find. Actually, I need to ask. Actually, I think Hamish sent me a scan of, because he has a scan of his brain. So we could
yeah, we could use the scan.
Somewhere.
So eventually, we will probably have like an MRI scan world open out, and we could call it MRI scan.
But you can actually import these yourself. So like you can essentially import, like if you have this scan as like a series of images, what you can do is there's that's bright. Oh yeah, that's bright. There's actually a way to import it. And that way, like you can even find like MRI scans like on the internet, and if you import them in here, like essentially Neos will make sure to generate the volumetric data for you. So what do? You place all of the image slices into a single folder, and then in the file browser, you essentially select the folder, you click the import button, and it will offer you import import the folder as volumetric data. And essentially, it will take care of all the conversions for you. So. And then you can visualize it like this, the same way we are doing. But essentially, what I wanted to show, can we restore it a little bit? Okay, so let's set this back to slice. Let me restore the offset, just the threshold. Oh, I don't want an exponent. But one thing I was sort of trying to mention is that like now that actually I have this in here, it works with everything else in Neos. So let's say we have the brush system, and the brush system, it can be used for like making art, it can be used for taking notes, but it's very generic, and I can take the same brush system and I can start drawing inside of this. So I could like write notes, I could like use this essentially to communicate with somebody. Like I don't need to, like, because Neos is multiplayer, this is inherently multiplayer, and we can have a bunch of doctors like this through VR, essentially cooperating and analyzing the scan, or using it to teach some things. For example, you could be teaching somebody, like for example here you have the what's actually, I don't forget what's it called like in English, like in Czech we call it like a small brain. It's like the cerebellum. So essentially that's like the like a part of the brain responsible for things like balance and so on. And I think you can see like the 2 lobes, the hemispheres. You can see the brainstem here. But essentially you can have like people collaborating in real time, and also from like perspective of the engine, from perspective of Neos, when I implemented this in here, like I didn't have to worry about the synchronization. All I did is implement something that renders volumetric data like this, and the engine essentially takes care of the rest. And then that greatly simplifies building these applications, because otherwise I would have to spend all of the time implementing multiplayer, all of the time implementing some avatar system for the game, or integrating someone, integrating like the brush system. And only then I would essentially be able to implement the specific behavior of rendering MRI scans. But with Neos, all of this stuff already exists within the universe. I put it here, and the only thing I need to focus is just the MRI rendering. And that makes the whole process so much simpler and so much faster. And what's better, because it becomes part of this shared universe, other people can utilize the rendering components. They can essentially utilize it to build their own applications, like for example, SHR. Like they build application for training students to use a medical, like X-ray scan for dental work. But essentially, they use the volumetric rendering to simulate X-ray. And another really cool example is like another of our users and very early supporter, Circuitry. He actually used this to create art but instead of like actual like, medical data, he put some like I forget what exactly it was. It was some imagery, and essentially it made like this like really beautiful sort of like ghost like art. And it's something I never like even thought like that it could be used for, but it shows like the power of putting this in a shared universe, because like you have so many different people with so many different skills and so many different interests, and everybody finds like a different spin or different use case like for something, just because it's shared within the metaverse. And that sort of it sort of enables like this explosion of creativity, or like something I like to say like creative resonance, where you have like a lot of people sort of like jamming off each other and making really cool things, and just sort of like pushing each other like to make more and more creative things, not just like in science, but like in general.
Absolutely. And the possibilities for something like this are just going to be ever growing, and seeing other people come inside if you're utilizing it for something like this and scanning it out is going to be awesome. So let's showcase also some other stuff of the educational aspects. Did we want to do the bloodstream?
Yes, we can. Actually, that's one of the earliest worlds that I built for NEOS, and it's also kind of funny. I'm actually opened it one up. And it was actually funny because like bloodstream, it's like this staple of educational applications. Like when we have educational application, we have the bloodstream. Let me open up first. So okay. It's opening.
There we go, and we'll enter inside there. And this one everyone has access to, and yeah, it was basically one of the older worlds of Neos that was first built out, and actually shows you being inside of a whole entire bloodstream with the red blood cells and everything. I think, oh, there we go. Now we're inside of it. Yep.
Okay.
There we go. And the cool thing about this is you can even have a slider right here. Oh, my character isn't loading. Wait 1 second. Oh, there it goes.
Just give it. Oh, it's loading. Just give it a bit.
So you can actually have this slider right here, and it can change the speed of the red and white blood cells, and you can even stop them and pause them. Yep, and you can attach them.
And I can grab them and move them around.
Yep. So let me move them slow. Oh. I think Aegis got it.
He's having a very unique perspective on the bloodstream from the perspective of the blood cell.
There he goes. Perfect. So let me turn down the speed so we can actually grab one of these guys. So there you go. And you can obviously, by holding both grips, you can grip it out and scale it out. And get to see a white blood cell in that sort of way. Just let go.
Ah, that's my face. But essentially, like this world, like when I made like one of the first educational applications for like World of Communities, having a bloodstream there was a must. Essentially, it was like an experience I built inside of Unity. And when I was working on Neos, this was sort of like one of the staple experiences like during the alpha development, because this was actually one of the first functional worlds, like worlds that weren't just meant to like test like a certain feature in isolation. This is one of the first functional worlds built within Neos. That actually like I sort of like built from scratch, purely from within VR, and it was like sort of like used as also test like what's possible in the engine. I remember like making me like really excited is like how well it actually worked. Like just being able to build something like this completely from scratch within VR.
So DJ's asking a magic school bus question mark.
Oh, yes, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean,
we
should just go through. We should just go through. We should just go through those episodes and then try to recreate some of the experiences that they have.
How about we do that, because I'm totally down. My 90s kid side of me is yelling yes.
Absolutely.
Holy
I think it's like the
shit.
part, like, this is like the way education pretty much should work, where essentially learn by experience, you learn by exploring, essentially, and becoming like curiosity, and like listening to some kind of like lecture. And virtual reality, it offers like unique possibility to actually do education that way, where you can literally transport a person into the bloodstream, you can transport them into the brain, and you can have them interact with it. You can like grab things and see, and like explain like, oh, this is that, this is how it interacts like with the rest of the body. It just it makes learning much more natural, and like it makes it like it actually like piques your own curiosity, like where you want to learn, when you want to explore, you want to like see what's there, what is that, and what is this.
So Tace says something of TV shows done in VR taking CGI to the next level. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that kind of like disappoints me. I feel like that there's something like Neos right now, like this project, and it's trying to aim to do so many things for VR, and we still have like things when it comes out to the movie industry, because obviously people will spend a lot of money on movies. Somewhere to the ball range of like $250 to $500 million, just to make one movie, and you know, people will see that movie at once. Imagine if that level of money or that amount of time was dedicated into a project, even 5% of that just put into something like this project. I couldn't even imagine how many things and how much stuff would be made out inside of something like this, and how beneficial it would be. Because unlike something like a TV show or a movie, what did somebody parent this in my hand? Oh, there we go. Unlike something that's like just a movie or a TV show, like this has residual value to where somebody can come back and say over here and again and again and again. Just like how we were talking about you know, the chemistry thing. People, if we had, you know, $100 million that was invested out into really creating out an amazing experience for something like that, we could have every single chemical recorded out in VR, and people could, and I really feel like Neos is aiming to be somewhat almost like an internet of VR. Like, in that I really do feel like that, because the stuff that you can do already inside of here, it's going to aim and eventually evolve out to be very similar in that sort of regard. So,
like this experience, like this was built like in an hour or so, compared to like within VR, and it was like back when Neos was in alpha. So essentially, it was like all the tools, like it was like very clunky. Like now it can build like even easier than that, and. Like imagine like what you could like do if you have like a team of people like working on the experiences like for several weeks.
Yeah.
And essentially like, and just by the fact that this was built inside of Neos, like we can actually all be here together. We can be like part of this experience. We can be talking about what was in here. We can be interacting with this experience. It's essentially. That all like offers a huge like potential, because it's actually one of the things we noticed like early on when I was working like on the education applications, and we did a pilot project in one of the schools. The first experience, it was single player, but what we saw is like when the students like interacted, like because we had like a seven VR stations or so, and like all the way like back in 2014. But what we saw is that the students, they like. When they interacted with the experience, like it made them genuinely curious. Like they wanted to explore the experience, and you could see if they like discovered something. Like they discovered, oh, if you click on the
yeah, and that's the one where they were using leap
like,
motion.
Or if you
and
yeah, it was using leap motion. Or if you essentially or they found, oh, like if you take like this robot apart, or you can control this one robot like using your joystick or keyboard. Like you could sort of see the little discoveries like that's spreading throughout the classroom, like just by the students like talking to each other. Like one of them would discover something really cool, and like you could sort of see it like propagate throughout the room, and then the next group of students would come in, and they were already like. We thought we would have to like explain to each student, oh, this is how you control it, this is how you enter the experience, but we didn't have to do anything. Like the students, they just started like showing each other like what you can do, and like teaching each other, and it was really amazing to see, and that kind of like social aspect. I didn't realize like how important social is to the education itself.
Oh, absolutely. Having social in VR is very important. So let me. I want to have some questions to answer in the chat, because before you know it, Frox will probably be going on a run-on sentence, and but that's okay. So Tay asks integration of, or like says that an integration of like mocap and Nook or and cranny failing to literally get VR shot television. Yeah, I think that we're gonna eventually have something like, we were even thinking about having something like the Tesla suit, or having some sort of like mocap level design for making out things like that, as well as TR Hack is asking, is there planning to be a HoloLens support, which I don't know about.
HoloLens, we have looked into HoloLens, but the problem with that one is, the first one, it has a really low field of view, and it's really hard to get. And actually the second one, it should be better, but like there are huge waiting times for that one. We had like a few companies like asking for the HoloLens as well, but like even if you like ask for one, it's super expensive, and it's like you might need to wait like half a year before you even get it.
Yeah, the HoloLens is around like $3,500, right? $3,500 for a HoloLens.
Yeah.
So I mean, we want to look at it in this way. Like, we want this to be more readily available to consumer VR or consumer.
No. Like the price itself, that's like not a big issue, because like if companies want it, they are willing to pay that price for it. But the problem is, it's essentially the hardware isn't like mature enough. The hardware is more like limited, and it's also like it's not really available.
Right.
So like essentially they are selling like to like a handful of companies, and there was actually, I think like the Department of Defense in the United States, they like made a big order for the second HoloLens, and essentially they depleted like their entire like stock like for next half a year or so. So like it's very hard like to get your hands like on this kind of hardware right now. We also tried getting like other AR headsets like the Meta, but they never sent them out. And we had one thing we do have though is the North Star. So essentially we have like two kits of the North Star AR headset. It's looking pretty promising because like it has pretty wide field of view, so it feels more like you're actually within the experience, or like the experience is like overlaid on the wall. Because like the other ones, with the field of view being too small, it feels like you're just staring on a virtual screen that's like floating in the world, but it doesn't feel like it's part of your world. But with the North Star and with some of the like other headsets that are like trying to get really wide,
the 210 degree fields of view.
I don't think it has that much like it's a little bit lower, I think. It's about actually like I think similar to like DK2 or so for the North Star. I thought another problem with North Star right now is it's very early. So essentially there's no standard way of like doing like positional tracking, for example, or having like some input. So with that one, we're kind of waiting for them to like, they're working like on OpenXR integration, and we're sort of like waiting for them like to have like something ready for us like to start implementing. Because right now people are using like the Z Mini, they're using like the Intel RealSense, they're using some other solutions, they're using like combined with Vive Tracker, but like to use it with Vive Tracker, you have to use like the old version of SteamVR, and you sort of have to hack it together to make it present the tracker itself as a headset, and it's very it's not quite ready like for like integration. So that one I think will also take some more time. But we definitely want to get the Neos onto AR, because I think there's a lot of like really cool possibilities.
Yeah, AR inside of Neos would be so awesome. Me just like going inside my room and actually picking up and interacting with objects, but I feel like I'm actually looking at them and moving them around in my space would be incredible. So DJ also said, I want to arrange protons, neutrons, and electrons into atoms and form bonds with other atoms and molecules. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. And Tay says the implications of how efficient education can become with something like Neos is staggering, and I'm extremely excited every time I tune into these streams, into these days. I'm very excited about myself, and so is everybody else who is here inside of this community for growing the platform, not only just for the art and social side of it, but also for the educational side of it. And we already got some molecules.
There's actually also another thing. One of the reasons, like chemistry is also something I want to create like in Neos VR, like make it easier like to build applications with it, because do you know like the Vertigo channel, like the guy who essentially made this project. What's that? He made like this set called Snatomes.
Yep.
Essentially what it is, it's like a the model of atoms where like you can snap them together with magnets. And I like got to set, and what I found it amazing is like I would just be randomly piecing atoms together. Like I would, for example, put I'd put like the what's it called, sulfur, and like hydrogens, and I would like, oh, which atom is that? Like what properties it has, and I would like rearrange it. I would like go like, oh, and if I attach like this group of atoms, it becomes an alcohol, and like it's like, for example, so from ethane you get ethanol, and essentially it sort of provokes that kind of like curiosity and playfulness in you, and like that makes you want to learn more.
You know when Frog's getting excited when his 2 times speed of goes into 3 times the speed. That's when you know he's getting really excited.
Yes, it's just a really fun like thing to like just like play around and like see what it is. And with virtual reality you can take it even a step further, because like what you can do is you can have you can build the atoms in here, and it can actually tell you, oh, this whatever you just built, that's for example that's like methane, and like it has this properties, this has this effects. You can find it in these places in nature, and essentially as you're like just playing around, you sort of almost like by osmosis you learn more about like the world and about the science.
Yeah. And then somebody was also saying, Roz said in the top, saying those Neo spots are looking pretty good. Is there an avatar creator for them? Yeah, so we are
very soon.
Yep, very soon. The last thing that we're working on is the face, because it's also going to have a mouth. It'll be opening and closing, and it'll also have different expressions and have blinking through the eyes. So right when that happens, we'll have a creator for them, and these will be fully open models that people can use. Also, Tay asks, what's AR alternate reality? It's AR
reality.
AR stands for augmented reality, and that basically means you still see the real world, but you also see the virtual. So it's combining what you'd see normally in VR, but you're getting to see also your bedroom, the outside. So probably something like a pair of glasses. Yeah, like holodecks. Yep. Kind of think of it like that way. Servo says, surely there has to be a press release somewhere about the tumor diagnosis using VR. I'm not sure. I don't know, because sometimes when it comes to that sort of stuff, it's, it has to be, private, because it's like,
Yeah, well, a lot of things like we do, like we're doing like make press releases, because one of the reasons is like we're a pretty like small team, like we're like a big company, like some others, so like we have our options for like contacting the press are like a lot more limited, and oftentimes like it's very difficult like to get them like to even like listen or to even respond. So essentially, generally, we just do stuff, and that's pretty much it. So
yeah, there's some amazing stories of stuff that's already been done out with Neos that really I feel like kind of deserves press stuff. But yeah, like what Frock said, it's kind of difficult to get them to even respond or even want to make a story about it.
Like even like a SHR, because like they're like using Neos like for so many like awesome stuff, and like they like even what they showed, like their bar scratches the surface, because like they're using Neos to train students, but also like using, for example, Neos. And like one example that really touched me was where they used it for like a kid. I think he had like a cancer or something.
Foundation.
Yeah, Make-A-Wish Foundation. And he really wanted to go into space. And essentially what they did, they built out like an application where essentially they put him like on a rocket and they actually send him into space. They even have like a actual like spacesuit like at their labs, like they put him in the spacesuit, and I think they were like rocking the chair.
It was a simulation of him being like an astronaut for a day, and since he said that was his wish for like a Make-A-Wish Foundation, they were able to do that for him at the university. So they actually put him in the headset and they got him inside of the suit and made him feel, like a simulation, as if he was to be like, shot up out in space. And I just thought that story was really sweet, that VR has basically accomplished the dream, because normally, if Make-A-Wish was trying to actually send him off into space, that would cost, millions and millions and millions of dollars, or probably even more to do something. So, but
really plausible at this point.
Right, that it wouldn't have been possible. But that fact alone, it was able to make, that dream that he had a reality for a day, and that's the thing that really, is amazes me about Neos, and I always think about that story too.
It's like, it's also a thing, like, this is, like, it's the thing they did, like, it's so amazing, because they do stuff all like that, like, pretty much all day and every day, and, like, there's, like, so much of it, like, and it's hard to like hear about it, but like this is one of the reasons why I also wanted to like do the stream, is to sort of like showcase all the stuff they've been like doing and all the cool stuff like they've been building, because they definitely deserve also like more spotlight.
Yep. And then Art says maybe this type of stuff can also help with mental health. So a lot with anxiety, depression, it'll really help with psychology. I already think VR in itself can help tremendously with anxiety or depression, because it can put somebody in almost like in a way of like an altered state without having to use drugs. And and it already impacts the mind. We've already have all these case studies showing out when somebody is inside of the VR headset and how it can affect their psychology and how it can actually benefit them. Like, let's say, okay, perfect example, somebody is bedridden and they're not able to get out of bed. They can actually psychologically, while putting on the headset, feel as if they're moving to make it a less of an impact on their body, because they're actually able to feel like that sense of vertigo and that sense of them actually being able to move around if they are immobilized. And having that ability and the fact that we have that through technology, or even somebody who is going through pregnancy, they were showing studies on how an impact, that's a really big impact, is that person is going through pain, and they were actually able to use less drugs for that person giving childbirth while them being inside of a VR headset. So it's already shown of many studies of how impactful VR can be, and that's why I know for sure it's here to stay and here to be for something that even has more of an impact, especially when the technology itself, visually wise, sensory wise, improves out as the time goes on.
It's really like a very like powerful, because like another like example of like helping to solve the pain is like there was another company, and I think they did a study on this where essentially there was somebody who had like a lot of like serious burns, and essentially what they did, they put like a VR headset on him and they put him like into icy place, and actually it decreased his pain from his burns, so they didn't have to use as much morphine. And they found just the visual of being like in a cold, icy environment, like it's enough like to convince the brain to essentially not make the pain as bad as it normally would have been. So.
Yeah, and just hearing stories like that really gets me excited about VR and how it can really help people.
And even like with the thing like psychology, like another thing that VR like helps a lot is also like treating phobias, because like what it allows you to do is to create like a controlled environment. And let's say you have a like arachnophobia, like fear of spiders, and essentially what you can do with VR is like you can create an environment where you can approach spiders, but you have to still give the users, they have full control. They control how close they approach them, they can control how big they are, and essentially they can step by step sort of desensitize themselves to the spiders, and sort of over time like help get rid of that kind of phobia.
Yep. Spiders in the bloodstream. Yeah, you don't want to spring it on them. But
spiders in a bloodstream, that's a whole new fear.
Yeah, that's a whole new fear.
Yeah. Now imagine spiders in your veins. Yeah.
So Tay is saying, I started playing VRC since the last week of April and got VR on the 26th of July. 510 hours until VR, 212 since the 26th. I can't begin to put into words how helpful it's been for my social health to be able to just quietly hang out in a social space without the presence of required interaction or physical distance of not fitting in. You can literally hop into the next world, start finding your niche and people you regularly enjoy talking to, and create your own community. Yeah, for the social side of it is really big for people who have social anxiety disorder, because I think that no matter what, even people who have social anxiety disorder, they still want to be social. They still want to be able to communicate with people, and they still want to be able to have friends. And even though that some people will think, oh, well, that person is still isolating themselves, if that is something of a benefit and they feel good in their body to be able to still communicate in that way, why not? Because if that person feels like they get trembles or they get sweating, or they feel like into a way where they cannot be around people, then why not give that person the ability to still be able to communicate with somebody and be across with them and actually loosen up their feelings towards that sort of situation. So I completely agree with you. I think that sort of like feeling can definitely be at ease, especially when you're in a headset and you can remove yourself out of certain situations when you feel uncomfortable. And that's the benefit of VR for somebody who has social anxiety disorder or other fears or phobias about being around it with other people in that sort of environment. So that's another big health aspect that I see time and time again with people who come into VR.
I know, like, certain people, like, even like within our community, like, they're essentially, like, they've told me, like, one thing that helps them, like, because, like, they're, for example, they're terrified of, like, going into public. But, like, essentially with VR, because they have a full control over the experience, and then if they want to get out of the situation, they can literally just take the headset and pull it off.
Yep.
That gives them, like, enough confidence to actually start engaging in the social situations.
Yeah, because they can take it off, take a little bit of a break, and they don't have to really like worry about, you know, the.
And this can also help them essentially like become also like more desensitized like to the normal situation in the world. So.
Yep. And Dale says, I'm further developing my empathetic and social skills every day and sharing those skills with the people I chat with, and it generally feels like I'm going from weakness to superpower. Absolutely. Yep, it can definitely strengthen it out. And then Artlex says, yeah, I take mental health very seriously, and having to know that VR can help mental health a lot is important. Human beings are social creatures. Lack of social can cause a lot of issues. Loneliness can cause issues. Being able to help people feel comfort and even wanted helps a person feel like they have reasons, and it really helps with that. I hope for the best for the future of VR itself. I already know VR is going in an amazing direction, and something like this platform of Neos is driving for that to be, you know, the term all for something of a social VR, because the fact that you can even have all these different experiences that you can create with people, it adds on that one extra layer of being able to do so much stuff. And already, you know, somebody's already making out something right here.
I don't know what I'm making, but I'm making it.
So I think for the end of the stream, we can close it off by showing off one last thing, which is the Apollo mission, because I know Frox wanted to show that off, and we can discuss and talk a little bit more inside of there.
Okay, so we're going to open it up.
So TR Hack is saying, Frox, if you open source Neos, will it become standard also AHOJ? Do you know what AHOJ means?
What?
I'm not sure what AHOJ means, Tarak.
No, that means hello in Czech.
Oh, hello.
It's like ahoy.
Oh. So, but he was saying, like, if would it become standard?
I'm not exactly sure either, but like in terms of like open sourcing, we definitely want to open source like Neos at some point. But the problem is right now, we don't understand like what are like the business implications of that, because one of the things we need to make sure is, or that we want to make sure is that we can continue working on Neos and we can continue like pushing it forwards. And I feel like if we open source it, let's say right now, like what would happen? Like if some other company could essentially take the entire source, they could like make their own like spin-off project and essentially completely like take over, and you wouldn't be able essentially to continue working on it anymore. So it's a tricky thing, and right now we don't like feel confident for that. So
yeah,
so it's definitely something we want to do in the future once we have like a stronger footing.
Yep. So for the future. So let's go inside of the Apollo one, and then also spawn out the Twitch chat thing, so then people can interact with us and do the Zoop, and then you guys can go crazy for the last end of the stream. You're able to have a chance at the end of the stream. If you stuck out with us this long, then you can also do all the fun chat commands. And for the next stream that we have, we'll have it full on to where you'll be able to have the chat commands in every world. It's just this one we wanted to be a little bit more serious and doing out you know, that kind of stuff. So let's go to the other one.
Yes.
So now you guys should have access to the chat commands, or, you know, all the extra special.
Once more.
Why do you say that one the first? Don't encourage people. You dork.
Oh, they were too early with the pizza. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
They want to feed you.
I know, because I'm freaking hungry. You guys already know me streaming for 3 hours and 20 minutes, I get hungry.
Wait, hold on. Oh, come on. Come on. Here we go.
But I also want to say that I'm very thankful also to our community that's inside of here. The fact that, you know, people inside of here are already so helpful and actually want to engage with other people and know that people go through those sorts of like social anxieties or those kind of feelings, and the fact that us as a community can be supportive of each other. I really want that to continue out, and I really want people to express that more inside of here, because love is a very powerful emotion, and we should have more love than hatred inside of the world. We want to, you know, really express out that more, and why not? We're in a virtual place. Life should be different inside the virtual. Why not? Oh, and we got Evan.
You guys are all awesome.
Yeah, you're awesome as well, Don.
You're awesome.
Oh shit.
Yes, now we're jumping around. If you guys don't know already, this is an experience that we're going to be building out in September, where you guys will be able to explore the Apollo reconstructed, which is going to be a moon base inside of Neos that you can actually explore 3D scans of the Apollo mission, which in an educational standpoint, to see it in VR and see actual reconstruction 3D models of the real pictures that were taken on the project of the moon is like so awesome.
What's really cool about this one essentially, because like this has been like a passion project of mine for a long while, and like I wanted to bring this into news like for well over 2 years now. Essentially what I did, because I really love photogrammetry, I love like reconstructing 3D models out of photos. And a while back I was essentially looking into like I was sort of thinking, could I actually reconstruct something from historical photos, like photos that I didn't take, but that somebody in the past like took of some like historical thing. And I realized like NASA actually published pretty much all of the photos from the Apollo missions on Flickr, and they are in public domain. They're completely free for any use. And so I thought you could actually get like some reconstructions out of them. And I sort of started like going through archives and like processing the photos, and I found actually I could actually reconstruct a few things. And like this rock. This is the very first thing I actually managed to reconstruct, and when I first saw this like in VR, like it blew my mind, because when I look at this, like it's this is a reconstruction from photos that were taken on the moon years ago. Like those are the actual photos taken from there. It's not like Archie's reconstruction, but the actual historical photos. And now, thanks to the photogrammetry, I can actually look at the object that astronauts were seeing all the way back then, and sort of have a close enough approximation of what they were seeing fully in 3D. And I started like going through more of the scans, but like I found like all of them would end up just not reconstructing anything, or just getting like completely messed up. But later on I found like a technique where essentially I could like transfer like reconstruction data from one of the scans and apply it to a lot of others. I actually have like about like 30 to 40 pretty good reconstructions, and you can see samples of a few of them over here. Is actually also one of my favorite ones. This is the lunar lander, and what you can see, you actually have. Let's kind of move the camera a little bit so it sees the lander. So you can actually see there's a pretty good reconstruction of the lander, of like the landing part, and you get to see a lot of really cool detail. Like for example, even like the lander itself. If you go down, you can actually see a little bit of the nozzle.
Tay is asking, where's the man on the moon sculpture?
Oh, I should put it one.
Yeah, maybe we can find the pictures of
this one is,
that one.
like, if you look over here, it might be like maybe difficult to see, but essentially there's like this small crater, and like if you look like the lander, it landed right next to it, and over here you can sort of see like how it like piled like all the moon dust, like so you can probably imagine like as it was landing, it was like going in this direction and sort of like pushed it out of the way. So. And over here I have this one I'm really happy that I managed to reconstruct, because this is essentially...
He was able to reconstruct this out of
like
only two images. Yeah,
this is only 2 images, but like this photo is really famous. Like often like when there's like something about the moon landing, you see this photo. The footprint, footprint on the moon. But the cool thing, as I was going through the archives, I found he took 2 photos of it. And they were just enough like far apart that it managed to get this really cool 3D reconstruction. It even has like the ridges of the boot on it, and that's reconstructed from just these 2 photos. So I'm really happy I managed like to get this one. I know I should like get this one reconstructed, because it's such like such a well-known historical photo. And like some others, like for example the Lunar rover is not. The Lunar rover, like this one, it's not super good quality, but I'm happy at least I managed to get reconstructed one of them because it's also like a unique part of the mission. But essentially what we are working on is making this into a full experience where you take like all the like 30 or 40 scans, we put extra information, we build like a moon base. So essentially you get to circumnavigate this kind of like a futuristic moon museum, and you get to learn about the history of moon exploration in this very unique way, where essentially it's not just like looking at the actual historical photos, but you actually get the reconstruction from those photos. And I think that, at least to me, like it forms. It makes like it gives like this like unique connection because like it's not like some reconstruction like not reconstruction. It's not some like reimagination that an artist has made based like on the sketches and models, but it's a model, like a 3D object made from the actual photos taken on the moon. And to me, like it just makes it makes me feel like very very special and very very fun like to observe them. So I think this is going to be like one of the really cool like educational experiences and showcases like in here that people can come and explore and just learn something and see, and also see what kind of applications can actually be built with NEOS. So
yep, I'm excited to have the whole entire moon base sort of like style museum of the building that you get to be inside of, and it'll be all in this kind of locomotion where you're jumping around and it actually feels like you're jumping up and down the moon with the low gravity.
Oh yes.
I'm looking forward to like as we go forward in exploration of Mars and stuff. There's going to be a lot of great pictures to do stuff like this stuff.
Yeah,
I think actually the new rover that they are sending, I think in 2024, I'm not sure, but the new rover is actually gonna have like a 3D scanner on it, so they're probably gonna have like actual 3D reconstructions. And I know they do, because like I read like a paper, they do like some 3D reconstructions of the surface from the current rovers, from the Opportunity or Curiosity, I'm not sure, one of them. But essentially, I haven't found any details for that. One thing I did try is like I downloaded like the archive of the photos, but I haven't so far like found any like good way to like get like the 3D data out of them. Although that's something I would definitely love to do. I know like they do use it like for like a navigation. So essentially, they're like choosing like where the rover will go next. They essentially have like the nearby environment reconstructed in 3D, so they can sort of like better understand like the surroundings, because they have to be very very careful, because like if the rover gets stuck or like falls or something, like there's pretty much no way of recovering it. So it should definitely like help them. And I think it's actually a really cool thing, like if I'm not sure if they use VR for this, but like imagine like if they could actually go and like see the rover and they could see the reconstruction around it, and they could be walking around it to go, oh, maybe it'd be good like if it moved this way, and they like put like a thing there, and essentially that would be the interface for the rover, where essentially they make it a little more like futuristic, like cool, where essentially literally like put like a pinpoint on the reconstructed surface, and it like sends a signal to the rover, and the rover goes there.
Yep. And this project, I'm really excited to get to work on it during in September, and I think that's going to be really cool once you guys check it out and see it, and there will be like videos and even more scans than the ones that you see right here. This is kind of just like a demo, and the name of this world, you can check it out even right now and install NEOS, or I'm sure you already probably do if you're watching the stream, which is the Apollo Reconstructed Teaser. And that would be
this is literally just a teaser. Like I have like a lot more scans. There's like about 30 to 40. I'm not exactly trying to count them. Like even like one where I have like a foot of like the astronaut. I'm pretty sure like I don't have like anywhere there would be actual astronaut like completely, because like they moved between the shots. But I do have like a lot of like interesting scans. I'm really looking forward like getting this out there and having people experience them.
Yep. So is there anything else that you would like to touch bases on before we end off the stream?
I think that's pretty much, well, at least all that I can think of for now, but the stream has been like on for a while anyway, so like I think we can leave it at this.
Okay, awesome. Let me. If you guys have any questions in the chat before we end it off, please let us know now. That way it gives everybody a chance to ask any questions. I see that there was one question about what's the name of the technology / process that's enabling us to construct models, which was photogrammetry. But I don't know if they knew what, like, meant what software or something like that of like what it's being used, but.
For this one, I used a software called Agisoft. Their name it's called like Agisoft Metashape. It was used to call Agisoft Photoscan. And actually, I tried like a few others, like a reality capture, but I found like the Agisoft Photoscan provided like the most robust results for like low quality photos. But also some extra tricks I had to do like to essentially get these reconstructions. So like when we release the entire project, I'll be detailing the process of how I actually made these out a bit more, and I'll also be making the project files open. So like if somebody wants to like have a look at them and like to do their own reconstructions or maybe like some tweaks or like maybe improvements, you will be able to as well.
Yep, Agisoft Metashape. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming in and checking out our stream that we showcased out the educational properties or the future of education of VR. And thank you again to everyone who watched this stream, as well as thanks again to Hamish and Elodie for taking their time of their day to actually showcase all the amazing stuff that they have used and made out with Neos. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen for the next year of all the things that they will probably build out, especially once we get down on the timeline of new things such as more optimizations and even physics that could enable out more users to really dive deep into, you know, that magic school bus level of imagination for education, because me and Frox share a very similar view when it comes to education shouldn't be something that's boring or something that you don't want to really engage into. Education should be fun and exciting, and in the same way that like now how YouTube videos are really engaging with people and making them feel excited about learning stuff, and why people spend now a lot of time learning about things through videos, I feel it has even more of a prospect of learning through VR, because VR is now this new territory where we can engage people so much more, and makes it an amazing experience for people to actually come in and re-experience stuff in history, in science, in all realms of form of like learning, but actually makes it fun and enjoyable. And hopefully you guys feel the same way. Already some people said that they enjoyed this stream a lot and hope that we do more. We definitely will do more of these fun educational style streams and showcasing out other educational stuff that is inside of Neos. Is there anything else that you would like to say on that, Frox?
No, that's pretty much sums it up well. So thank you very much like for watching. Thank you very much like to Hamish and Elodie and everyone else like in the chat for watching.
Yep, and for our whole Neos community. And if you haven't already, please follow this channel, because right when we reach 1,000 followers, we're going to give back to the community, as well as give back to all of our followers on this Twitch channel. Thank you, Tay, for following, because right when we reach that 1,000 goal, we'll be able to have like a fun little party, probably even have like a contest and something enjoyable that the stream can actually engage in, maybe even interact with the Twitch commands to actually make the it actually work through Twitch of having that contest. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. And as well, join our Discord too. It's under the Twitch links. And also, you know, another thing that also helps out Frox a lot, if you've played Neos and you've enjoyed it, please write a review for us, because the more reviews that we get on our Steam page, the more that we have the ability to get this into the eyes of more people seeing it, and hopefully having more people use it for not only the social aspect, but including the educational aspect for Neos. And thank you guys so much again. And thank you, Tay, if you're... Patreon as well. Patreon helps us out a lot, because then it supports us monetarily wise. But thank you guys again, and we'll see you in the next stream. I'll probably be doing a stream this Sunday for Medra's. Medra's Creator Jam, which I think
they're building a game.
Yep, they're going to be building a game. And which game is it again? I think
it's like a shooter game or something.
Yeah, let me just go on my Discord so you guys know what it is. It's going to be...
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale.
So, like, using like a system that like multiple people have like built, and
So and I'm actually going to be talking to Medra tomorrow and discussing about what that's going to entail, and that one should be a really fun stream if it's going to entail with like game making and having a battle royale. Like that should be awesome. So thank you guys again so much, and we're going to be ending off the stream now. Bye byes. See you guys. See you, Blaze. See Lucas. See Ruz. See everyone that has joined us.
Hi, stream.
Spinning.